Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the Monroe County Board of Zoning Appeals. And with that in mind, Ms. Nestor Jelen, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Margaret Clements.
Here.
Skip Daly.
Here.
Pamela Davidson. Guy Loftman.
Here.
Dee Owens. Okay, I do not see Dee or Pamela online, so we just have the 3 members in person right now.
Yes, and that means that in order for us to pass anything or deny anything, all 3 of us have to agree. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Just so everyone in the audience knows that we must be in consensus in order for anything to be resolved this evening. Okay? With that being said, is there a motion to introduce the evidence?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded to introduce the following items into the evidence: the Monroe County Comprehensive Land Use Plan as adopted and amended, the Monroe County Zoning Ordinance as adopted and amended, the Monroe County Subdivision Control Ordinance as adopted and amended, the Board of Zoning Appeals Rules of Procedure as adopted and amended, and the cases advertised and scheduled for a hearing on tonight's agenda.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the evidence. Guy Loftman.
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Skip Daly.
Yes.
Passes 3-0.
Okay. We understand that there's an amendment to tonight's agenda, and with items number 4 and 5, Cassidy buildable area variance to Chapter 804 and Cassidy use variance to detached accessory dwelling unit in Chapter 802. But we must hear from the petitioner because he filed for the continuance in fewer than 7 days before tonight's meeting. With that being said, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve tonight's agenda. A motion in favor is a motion to approve. Skip Daly.
Yes.
Guy Loftman.
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
And is there a motion to approve the minutes from the December 7th, 2022, January 4th, and February 1st, 2023 minutes of the BZA?
So moved.
Is there a second? No. Okay, so we'll continue that to the next meeting because we don't have a second, and it would require all of us to approve it, and we won't have that tonight.
Is it possible by chance that if you split those up, would there be any of the minutes that you would be willing to pass? There's some that are on a timeline for pass.
Can we get the volume of the microphones raised, please?
I'll take my mask off. You're fine. Would it be possible that if you looked at any of the individual months' meetings, you'd be willing to?
I maintain my objection from July of
Okay.
22
Okay, so there won't be a
in our
consensus.
process, so there will not be.
Okay.
Is there a way that we could do that by email?
No, you have to do it during the meeting to approve the minutes.
So we would have to have a special meeting when Pamela comes back or when
We
Dee...
could do it at the special meeting. Or
Okay.
at a
You
special
have-
meeting.
Point of order.
Pardon me?
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
You have the ability as chair to ask if there's any objections to the minutes and then solely approve them if there's not.
I have no objections to any of the minutes.
I have no objections to any of the minutes. Is it possible for me to solely approve the minutes?
Absolutely.
I believe that Mr. Schilling, our counsel, has stated before that you have to vote by a majority vote,
I see.
but he'll be here shortly, and we can
Okay.
double check with him if we want
If
to move
it's-
that to the end.
Let's move that to the end.
Okay.
Okay. So with that being said, there's no administrative business, there's no old business. Under new business, items 1 and 2 have been withdrawn by staff. Item 3 was withdrawn by staff. And items 4 and 5, the Cassidy buildable area variance to Chapter 804 and the Cassidy use variance to detached accessory dwelling unit in Chapter 802 concerning a property at 4820 to 4830 South Rogers Street. I think Oh, is it who will be presenting this? Will it be you, Jackie?
So it is Mr. Cassidy that is, would be the petitioner, but I don't see them on the Zoom call, so I guess you would just be voting on whether or not to continue their petition based on their request.
And could you just tell us that they requested that continuance?
Yes, they did request that continuance.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the continuance?
I motion to approve the continuance.
Second?
Okay,
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to continue case VAR-23-1 and VAR-23-7 to the April 5th Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. A vote in favor is a vote to continue it to the April 5th meeting. Margaret Clements?
yes?
Skip Daly?
Yes.
Guy Loftman?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 3-0.
Okay, we're already on page 2 of our agenda. So we'll begin with item number 6, and that concerns a variance, VAR-23-2, Erdel and Forsyth use variance for detached accessory dwelling unit use from Chapter 802, and that concerns a property at 4615 East State Road 45. And Mr. Myers, if you would be so kind as to present this to us.
Thank you. All right, so this is variance, maybe that's better. This is variance 23-2, is the Erdel and Forsyth use variance to allow a detached accessory dwelling unit. The petitioner is requesting the use variance for a detached accessory dwelling unit, also known as DADU, at 4615 East State Road 45 on 2.29 acres. Subject property is zoned Estate Residential 2.5 and currently exhibits the land use of a single-family residential. The petitioner intends to remodel an existing detached outbuilding into an approximately 500 square foot detached accessory dwelling unit with an attached garage and greenhouse. The petitioner intends to connect the accessory structure to an existing septic system that will be upgraded as part of a bedroom addition to the primary residence. Accessory dwelling units are defined in Chapter 802 as a separate complete housekeeping unit with a separate entrance, kitchen, sleeping area, and full bathroom facilities, which is an attached or detached extension to an existing single-family structure. So the use of a detached accessory dwelling unit is only permitted in the Ag RR, the FR, and the CR zoning districts, and it's also subject to special condition 53 and 55, which I've included on the screen here. Basically, these conditions also talk about the need for the lot size to be 5 acres or greater, as well as other criteria such as it's limited in square footage to 1,000 square feet of residential space, and the remaining numbers 2 through 8. I will not read them verbatim, but we can come back to any of these if we need to. Okay, so this is a use variance. It differs from a design standards variance. The criteria for the use variance are a little bit different. In order to approve a use variance, the board must find criteria A through E, and that the petition satisfies each of them. So we'll keep that in mind as we proceed through this petition. Okay, so here we have some aerial pictometry of the petition site. The top left photograph you'll note is this is where the existing home is, and then in the back area is the existing outbuilding. The existing outbuilding remains unfinished. It does not have finished walls or siding and is open to the elements. This is State Road 45 here on the screen, and the driveway that goes to 4615 East State Road 45. Here is the existing residence, and then in the bottom right photograph, you can see the driveway as it continues back to the existing outbuilding that's proposed to be converted to a DADU. And then some additional photographs of that structure itself. You can see the existing attached greenhouse, garage facilities, and that it's completely unfinished. And then just more photographs here. The photograph in the top left corner is of the, I believe it's of the potential septic location, or where the septic currently is located, that will be upgraded for the use of the dadu, as well as the bedroom addition to the existing single-family residence. The property owners are intending to remodel the existing single-family residence as well. But that will likely be an interior remodel. I don't know all the specifics of that plan, but I'm sure the petitioner could have more to say on that if you have questions regarding that. One thing to note is that this particular petition, in addition to the use variance, if it is approved tonight, there will be a requirement at a later stage for several other design standards that must be met for this particular structure. And we kind of show that in here in this bottom right photograph. Basically, the structure as it sits is too close to the the side yard setback of the property. It sits fairly close. It would be required to have at least, I believe it's 20 feet in distance. So that will be in a separate petition for design standards variance to get that approved for that structure. Also, the condition of number 53 in part of the criteria for the DADU, it states that a property must have 5 acres to receive a DADU. So that would also be an additional design standards variance that would be required if this use variance were to be approved. So here's a picture of that side yard setback area. You can note how close the home is to this line. I don't know the exact boundary or where the exact line is located, but based on aerial pictometry and the site survey that I'm about to show you in the next couple slides, we'll note that it's very close to this back line. And then the bottom right photograph is just turning back towards State Road 45 and looking at the existing single-family residence. Okay, so here we have the petitioner's letter to the Board of Zoning Appeals. This is included in the packet. I will not read directly from it as it's a lot of text, and I'm sure the petitioner has a prepared statement during their allotted time as well. Here we have the submitted site plan for the property at 4615 East State Road 45. You'll note in the top right corner is the outbuilding, and you'll note that the measurements made here are very close to that rear setback line. And then we also have the existing residence located here, as well as the driveway and other features. Okay, and planning staff did receive a few letters of support for this variance request. The one on the left was included in the staff packet as it was submitted before the publication of the packet. And then on the one on the right was received after the packet was published. So I will leave this up on the screen for a moment for you to review it, as it was not in the published packet.
Okay.
All right, and this last exhibit here that I've included is the existing use table for the RE 2.5 uses. Everywhere where you see a P stands for permitted, and anywhere you see the letter C, it stands for conditional, which would require a conditional use variance to be approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals in order to have that use on the property. So you'll note that an accessory dwelling unit is not included in this list, as it is in Chapter 802, and the existing zone of this property is in Chapter 833. Overall, staff recommends for this variance petition denial based upon the findings of fact that there is no substantial evidence that the property cannot be utilized under one of the permitted uses listed in the RE 2.5 zoning district, and therefore does not meet criteria 812-5D. I will now take any questions.
Do members of the Plan Committee, or the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for Mr. Myers?
I have one. I'm looking at there must be a affidavit, if this is granted. The owner must file an affidavit in the courthouse that says that the owner will always live on the property, to summarize it. Does that bind future owners or just the one filing the petition?
That's a good question. I'll defer to the director.
Yeah, so the affidavit is meant to be filed by whoever's constructing the dadu. We have only had this provision since 2015, but the intent is that every subsequent owner would also need to be living on the property and only rent out or utilize one.
Makes perfectly good sense, but I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
want to guess. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I have one question. What other variances would be anticipated if this were approved tonight?
So if this were to be approved tonight, the other additional variances that would be required would include, let's see here, a variance to the minimum lot size requirement of condition number 53 that requires 5 acres. This property is at 2.29 acres. Additionally, the side yard setback variance would be required as it would not meet the RE 2.5 side yard setback requirement. The current structure, that would be the dadu, is sitting at about a half a foot off of the side property line.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Daly?
In your presentation, I did not hear any public safety concern, any environmental concern, or any public nuisance concern. Is that correct?
That is correct. Staff's recommendation is based on the finding that item D cannot be met.
Thank you.
Okay, with that being said, we go to the petitioner. Is the petitioner or the petitioner's representative here? That would be Mr. Ertel or Ms. Forsyth. And if so, would you come to the podium? Oh, I see that Haley Forsyth is online on Zoom. She has raised her hand. Ms. Haley Forsyth, if you would be unmuted. And also, would you please raise your right hand? And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Yes, and Ms. Forsyth, in what county do you reside?
Currently, we reside in Cook County in Chicago, Illinois.
I see. Okay, so you have 15 minutes to talk to us about what you want to do here and explain to us why we should be granting the variance that you request.
Okay, thank you. So my husband and I purchased this property back in October, and as our neighbors expressed in the letters, was owned by a man in his 80s and had been completely unable to care for this amount of land for over a decade. I believe, we're not quite sure how this structure came to be, but we believe he started construction on it, or his partner started construction on it at least 12 years before we bought the home. It's in a massive state of disrepair. We've had structural engineers come out and look at it. We're working with Spring Point Architects to try to utilize this structure. And the property and the structure itself have been very unkempt. We have cleared over dozens of ponds from the property. We have cleared brush in large levels, poison ivy that was covering both of the structures. And we purchased the house with the hopes that this could be used for my mom to relocate from Florida to Bloomington and live with us on the property. And we're moving from Chicago in next summer. And we are going to begin working on the main house once we sell our property here, and would like to start working on this. I think dadu is how you guys pronounce it, the cottage, hopefully as soon as possible. One of the big reasons that we're hoping to get the use variance is affordable housing in Bloomington is a really big challenge, especially for someone like my mother on a very fixed income as a retiree. And I'm her only living child. We currently live very far from our family, and we would like to live in kind of a multi-generational housing situation. The only person that will be living there will be my mother. Do not intend to ever rent this property out as a individual dwelling or as an Airbnb. It is strictly for us and our family to use. Currently, the structure's there. You all were able to see the pictures. The two-car garage that looks like a ranch will stay just that. And then the peaked roof, if you can see, that's our house. The two-car that you see there, that's gonna stay a garage. And then if you can progress one more photo, that portion there that already has the side door would be my mother's, hopefully, front door. We would add windows. We're working with the architects to try to develop a lovely cottage that would work with our main house renovation. What's important to note is that the structure is visible, absolutely, it's not at all visible from State Road 45. The only person that can see this, even in the dead of winter, is Gary Gettelfinger, who lives behind us. And he's come over his house you can see in the picture on the right. There's a significant amount of space between our property and his. Before we moved in, you couldn't even see his property because there was so much dense overgrowth that we have since cleared out because of all the ponds that were there that were full of mosquitoes, and it was we've spent many thousands of dollars already just trying to help the property look better. So we're planning to hopefully make this into a cottage for her. And the biggest thing is we don't feel like it adds anything detrimental to the neighborhood. There's no driveway that needs to be installed. Our septic system is more than likely decades old, so we have to replace that anyways. And our proposed leach field would be in the image to the left. So we really think that this is going to do nothing but improve the neighborhood. And it's along a neighborhood walking trail, which has been, historically, it's very unsightly. And these homes in this area on Prairie Green Court are $1 million homes. They're lovely. So this structure's there. We have it to work with. We're hoping to utilize it in a great way. We know that the city of the county is in the hopes of starting to modify things to allow smaller residences, tiny homes, and we hope to, our architect especially is excited to work on this project to be able to have an affordable housing option for my mom. We toured and looked at homes this summer in the area, and anything within her price range is an extreme fixer-upper or really far out of town or has high HOA fees. And so the big thing we're really hoping to do is have an affordable option for her right away, renovate it in a way that she can age there and be a part of our family. And we really are excited to be a part of the Bloomington community. My husband's from the area. He went to school at IU. We are excited to slow down a little bit and be part of the Bloomington community as soon as possible. So this is kind of the first step there, and it's also just a very hideous building. And without my mom's, help with helping us renovate it and it be a home for her, the funds just aren't there to make it happen. So my husband's also here. Do you have anything you want to say? We have like 9 minutes.
I don't know if I have to do the same, but I just want to express that we really are only planning on utilizing this auxiliary dwelling unit for my mother-in-law. And, if my daughter decides to stay local and go to IU, we would plan on using that for my daughter's, I guess. Many
years down the road. She's 4 years old.
Yeah, so we've got some time, but that would be the only use for that. So my wife and I plan on, as she mentioned, moving down next year. We are planning on residing in that property once it's all fixed up and ready to go. My parents just purchased a home there on the south side of Bloomington, so we're going to have all the family close by. So that was kind of the key. So relocating my mother-in-law is just her And as my wife mentioned, she's the only child that she has with her. So having her close by, that way we can make sure that she stays healthy and she gets all the care that she needs as she ages. But God willing, it's going to be quite a while until then. So, but that's our main goal. And I know several of our neighbors have expressed overjoy that we've moved in, we've started cleaning up the property, because as you can see in the pictures, it is quite the eyesore. So for Gary's, his perspective when he's relaxing with his family out in the back porch, the last thing I want him to see is a deteriorating building. So that's our goal, is to make the neighborhood look really nice and be a part of that community there. So,
Mr. Ertl, I forgot to swear you in. Would you kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear that your previous stated testimony is true and accurate and nothing but the truth?
Nothing but the truth, true and accurate.
Thank
Yes,
you
I
very
do.
much. Thank you. Do you have anything else to add, Ms. Forsythe?
I think my mom has prepared a little statement. I think she's also on the call. If you could add her. Her name's Jean Forsythe.
Okay. Jean Forsythe, if Tech Services could unmute her. And then Ms. Forsythe, if you would kindly raise your right hand, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And in what county do you reside?
I reside in Pinellas County in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so with that being said, we'd like to hear from you.
Yes, I'm very excited about this property Nick and Haley have purchased, and I'm very grateful that they have included me in their adventure with this property and their plans. I'm hoping we can move forward with this to make this their dream home. I'm going to be retiring in approximately a year to a year and a half. I've worked in the hospital as a social worker for 43 years in a major hospital system in Florida. And I want to live desperately to my daughter, closer to my daughter. I have a son that passed away approximately 5 years ago, and she's basically the only close relative I have. I've also not had a lot of luck. We went up last summer looking for places for me to live in Bloomington, and I can't really afford either a condo because of the HOA fees, or to buy a house that I can afford, and it will require a lot of remodeling and so forth. And of course, you've heard that when they bought the house, that this was technically a 4-car garage, and the hope was to remodel it to a 2-car garage and then to approximately a 500 square foot cottage for me. And I'm very hoping, very thankful that they've included me in this, and I want to be involved in my granddaughter's life as much as possible. Nick and Haley have also, just to note, they have remodeled 2 homes in their marriage. One of them was in Gulfport, Florida, and it turned out absolutely beautiful. It was a bungalow. And then they have remodeled, or have been involved in remodeling, a home in Chicago that was over 120 years old. And it is amazing. There's not much else I can say about that. I'm really excited to be a part of the Bloomington community. I'm hoping to volunteer at my granddaughter's elementary school, and I'm also hoping to volunteer in IU University Hospital there in Bloomington. And I guess that's about all I have to say. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you. I'll refer to other members of the Board of Zoning Appeals to see if you have questions for the petitioner.
I do not.
Okay. I had one, but it evades me right now. Yeah, I'm not really thinking of it right now, but you will have an opportunity after we hear from the people who are advocating on your behalf to rebut. Yes, thank you. So with that being said, are there members here in this room, in the Nat Hill room? Yes, sir, if you would kindly come up to the podium and sign in. We need your signature there, and then I'll swear you in. This is a quasi-judicial process, so,
No problem.
okay.
Okay.
Would you kindly raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And would you tell us your name and what county in which you reside?
My name is Bob Cummins. I live in Monroe County.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cummins. You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay.
Okay.
I actually am a resident of Prairie Green Court. We have 10 homes that are in that court. I live in the back section, and I can tell you, everyone would be doing handstands if this gets approved. The place was a mess. It's been cleaned up. I heard some of the issues about where it's stated on the property line. That was built before Gary Gettelfinger even purchased his home there, so everybody knew where the property lines were. There's also a trail that goes along there that we walk along. Many times we can't walk on it because of the overgrowth. So those are some of the things. Actually, the guy that lived there was making a studio out of the big part of the garage. That was going to be a studio where he repaired violins. But in the later years, he couldn't do it. Also, I give you an example that goes contrary to the boarding or to what is stated as the regulations. If you go down 45 to the east, the first residence that you see there, they did exactly what Nick and Haley would like to do. They took a 4-car barn, turned one part of it into an office, the other part into an apartment that is rented. So, and it's on 3 acres. But I can tell you all of the residents would love to have it, especially Gary. If he could be here tonight, he would be, but he asked me if I could show up and just say a couple words in support. But we very much would like to see it happen.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Cummins. Thank you. Is there any other member of the public here in this room who would like to speak in favor of this petition? If not, is there a member of the public who is either online or on the telephone who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please raise your virtual hand on Zoom or press *9 on the telephone if you'd like to be recognized. And is there a member of the public who is here in person, on Zoom, or on the telephone who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? Please make yourself known. Do you see anyone, Drew? No? Okay, with that being said, we come back to members of the Board of Zoning Appeals for further discussion and/or a motion.
Well, this is solving a problem. It looks to me, not creating a problem. And the problem was created by long ago. Obviously, to me, the market has spoken. There is no other use that anybody is interested in. And so I feel supportive and move that we grant and I appreciate staff. I think they're correct, but I think our job is to say sometimes this ordinance needs a little tweaking in specific circumstances, and these are those circumstances. So I move that we grant the request.
Is there a second?
Is that an official motion?
Yes.
Yeah, I move.
Okay. Do you also have to mention in that motion, and sorry, sidebar is that you find
Yes.
there is hardship
Yeah, on these reasons.
Yes,
Hardship is demonstrated.
yes, hardship is demonstrated.
You have to show actually 3, 4, 5 things.
Okay,
That is that the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the
Yeah,
community.
that's that.
The use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a
Nope.
substantially adverse manner.
right,
The need for the variance arises from some condition peculiar to the property involved.
true,
The strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to this property for which the variance is sought,
that's what I meant to say.
and that the approval does not interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan, especially the 5 principles set forth in the Monroe County Comprehensive Plan.
Based on that collaborative motion, I will second.
Okay? With that being said,
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve VAR-23-2, which is the Erdel and Forsyth use variance for allowing a detached accessory dwelling unit, or DADU, with the findings that this petition does meet the criteria of 812-5. So a motion in favor is a motion to approve, and it must be 3-0 in order to either pass or deny a motion. Skip Daly?
I will vote yes, but I will also clarify that the petitioners are not through the weeds yet. As you mentioned previously, they have a laundry list of other accomplishments to take care of. Yes.
Guy Loftman?
Yes,
Margaret Clemens?
I will, even though I normally would vote no on this, because there's a pre-existing structure that they are converting into a DADU, and because they have the support of their neighbors, I find that the house might be improved without the addition of the DADU, right? So it's not necessary that the DADU be approved in order for the renovation to occur. It's not an essential characteristic. But because there was a pre-existing structure, and because the neighbors are approving it and are in favor of it, and because the property has been on the market for quite some time, I will vote yes.
Okay. Motion carries 3-0 to approve the variance.
Okay, with that being said, we're swimming right along. We're to item number 8 on the agenda, VAR-23-5, Sojourn House Incorporated use variance to group home class 2 in chapter 802 concerning 7.73 plus or minus acre parcel in Benton South Township at 7505 East Kerr Creek Road. And right now, it is in Ag Rural Reserve, and it's in an Eco-Constraint Overlay 3. So with that being said, Ms. Nestor-Jelen, would you be so kind as to go over this with us?
Sure. So the request here tonight is for a use variance from Chapter 802 for a use classified as Group Home Class 2. The purpose is that they would like to utilize an existing residence as a Group Home Class 2. I'm going to go ahead and go through some of the criteria in the packet. This is a use variance, so we are looking at the same standards as the prior case, 812-5. I just want to start with the definition of a group home class 2. So it's a facility providing 24-hour care in a protected living arrangement for not more than 15 residents. This classification includes homes for juvenile delinquents, halfway houses providing residence in lieu of institutional sentencing, halfway houses providing residence to those needing correctional and mental institutionalization. This classification also includes emergency shelter during crisis intervention for not more than 15 victims of crime, abuse, or neglect, and residential rehabilitation for alcohol and chemical dependence for 15 or fewer individuals. So the use request tonight, we have determined that they are in part meeting this definition for the use. Just a little bit of background, the Sojourn House requested information regarding 2 properties located in the county jurisdiction. beginning in the fall of 2022. Originally, staff gave the petitioner the information under the state code, which classifies this type of use they are seeking as a residential facility for individuals with mental illness, which we have included a use determination below with that definition. One property that we received questions for by the Sojourn House was 7505 East Kerr Creek Road. The petitioner submitted a use determination form on December 2nd, 2022 for 7505 and subsequently purchased the property on December 27th, 2022. On December 14th of 2022, staff mentioned that we believe that the state statute superseded the Monroe County zoning ordinance. It was based upon this information that the Sojourn House purchased the property. It was later determined that there were portions of the zoning ordinance that were not superseded by the state's classification of this property as a residential facility for individuals with mental illness, and that a use variance must be sought, which is why we're here tonight. A formal letter was issued on January 13th, 2022, which is after the petitioner purchased the property. So in summary, staff determined that the use could be defined as both group home class 2 and a residential facility for individuals with mental illness, but the use variance request before the BZA tonight is only for a group home class 2 use. I'm going to go through a few slides just to show the location of the property, some photos, and then I want to come back to, again, some portions of the packet that I think are helpful for the discussion. So this property is located in Benton South Township. I do have a site conditions map on the right-hand side. You'll see that there is some slope to the property as well as floodplain. Notably, this property is built out with a residence, 4 bedrooms, and there's no proposal for future additions or development to the property. I've included a pictometry here as well, just to show you sort of the surrounding area and its relative character. Also facing along Kerr Creek Road, the way that I traveled to get to the property was through Getty's Creek off of 46. And then also facing the property here to the north, you'll see there's a 2-car garage as well as other parking spaces surrounding the property. And then this is located near the floodplain, so I did want to get some photos just of that creek area as well as the back of the home. And then, as I mentioned, the 2-car garage for parking areas, as well as a larger concrete area. We did receive several remonstrance letters, which are in the packet, but I also included one on the slide that you did not receive. So I passed that out in person if you had a chance to read it, but I'll also leave it on the screen for you to take a look at. And it's in 3 slides. Okay, so I've also included exhibit of their site plan. As I mentioned prior, they're not planning on adding on to the home or doing any further changes to the home. One of the conditions of approval that you'll note in the staff report is that we are asking for a formal site plan filing if this use variance is granted. So just a few bits of information under Exhibit 2 of the packet. The petitioner, Sojourn House, Inc., has proven under Exhibit 1 of the use determination that their screening process would only allow individuals that could be classified under the state statute's definition of mentally ill, as well as those defined as having a disability under the Americans with Disability Act. Therefore, staff is reviewing this request in light of all applicable state and federal provisions around requiring accommodations for people with disabilities in housing arrangements. Federal law prohibits discrimination based on disability under the Americans with Disability Act and the Fair Housing Act. And I've pointed out just some important parts of both of those definitions. Under the Americans with Disability Act, it's an individual with disability is defined by the ADA as a person who has physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. In addition, under the Fair Housing Act, it prohibits housing discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, and national origin. Its coverage includes private housing. It is unlawful to discriminate in any aspect of selling, renting housing, or to deny a dwelling to a buyer or renter because of the disability of that individual. Other covered activities include, for example, zoning practices. I've paraphrased here. So the Planning Department recognizes that our ordinances are outdated and that this section of the ordinance in regards to the definition of group home class 2 and its permission under which zones it's permitted has not changed since the code's adoption in 1997. Our administration of the Monroe County zoning ordinance requires adaptation to applicable state and federal law provisions. As such, we recognize that the use of the group home class 2 should be permitted in all residential districts in order to comply with the state's residential facility for individuals with mental illness, the Americans with Disability Act, and the Fair Housing Act. And this is what is currently being drafted under the county development ordinance, which is for review by the public, and we are accepting comments. Other towns and cities in Indiana do have this type of use either conditionally permitted, or permitted by special exception in every residential district. These include, but are not limited to, Bartholomew County zoning ordinance, the Brown County zoning ordinance, Plainfield, Indiana, Carmel, Indiana, Westfield, Indiana, and Bloomington, Indiana. Those are just some of the examples that I was able to look up in a certain amount of time. So basically, in summary, by requiring a use variance, the question for staff and for the Board of Zoning Appeals also is we want to make sure that this request is not an undue barrier for those with disabilities to live together that would otherwise be enjoyed by others living without disability or mental illness. And staff recognizes that this use would have a similar impact to that of a single-family residence. So with that, staff has recommended approval for the use variance. And again, the condition of approval, if granted, would be that the petitioner apply for a site plan review to ensure that the site is meeting the requirements of the zoning ordinance, including but not limited to parking, landscaping, septic capacity, etc. And then the reasoning, if approved, the petitioner still will comply with the requirements under group home class 2, and that state and federal provisions require those with disabilities and or mental illness be provided the same accommodations as those living without disability or mental illness. In this light, the use should be considered to be in line with the single-family residential use, and therefore the use variance shall be granted. So I can take any questions.
Do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for staff?
I will. I'm forming it.
Or maybe after we hear from the petitioner? So if the petitioner is present or the petitioner's representative, please come to the podium, sign in, and then I'll swear you in. Would you please raise your right hand? And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And what is your name and what county do you reside?
My name is Carissa Muncie, and I live here in Monroe County.
Thank you. And you'll have 15 minutes to talk with us about what you want to do.
Thank you. I thank you for your time and attention this evening as we work through this really important decision to our whole community. Please allow me to introduce you to Sojourn House and then clarify the grounds for this variance. The scope of Sojourn House is important here. We've been working in the community through outreach services since 2021. We provided services and education for over 70 women who have been trafficked during this time. Unfortunately, those services are severely limited for the portion of those women who need stable housing while they work on their goals. Many of the women we serve fall between the cracks because while they appear to be capable and well, they battle trauma-based mental illnesses that make complete independent living too difficult. It's been our goal all along is to provide a house and a home. Sojourn means a temporary stay. And so we intend to provide 2 years of programming and home in this group home setting that is structured for support of growth toward successful independence, access to therapy, job readiness, relationship building, budgeting, and healthy habits, similar to what a healthy family provides in organic ways, and ongoing support for recovery from addictions. It's important to note what Sojourn House is not. It's not punitive, it's not court-ordered, it's not a mental health facility, it's not a short-term emergency housing, it's not detox or rehab, and it's not a rescue center. There are qualifications for this residential program: a history of being trafficked, need for education and job readiness, and a mental illness such as PTSD, depression, or anxiety. The ways we measure the acceptance into the program starts with an interview process, and oftentimes women who have already been part of our services. Evidence-based mental health screening tools, drug screens, safety concerns must be addressed. And in cases where safety concerns in the area, a woman could be relocated to another state within our 92 house network. The intake process is lengthy and ends up in a signed contract, so women understand the scope of what they're getting into. The program requirements are contained in quite a thick handbook that I will not dump here, but I'll give you the highlights based on the pillars of our model. It's based heavily on peer and staff accountability. Peer accountability, just as a family, each person has a responsibility to others in the home for safety and well-being. Accountability to the staff and the program plans point her to maybe an individualized plan, but toward forward movement. And safety for self and others in the house, as well as neighbors, is paramount. The consequences outlined in this handbook I'm talking about for the failure to keep self and others safe, the consequences include dismissal from the program. So how is Sojourn House prepared to handle such complex needs? Well, we're proud to have support from local government agencies, from the Monroe County Council, from the commissioners, the City of Bloomington through the DTO or Downtown Outreach Program, and the many, many agencies who we work with who have proven to be reliable resources. Our staff will have community health worker certifications, peer support specialist certifications, a registered nurse who will navigate medical concerns when needed, and a very robust community advisory board with many areas of expertise where we need them. But most importantly, we have community collaboration, just as anyone in this room has. Sojourn House is a house, and so we trust the professionals in the community to serve these women the same way all of our neighbors do. Sojourn House makes sure the women we serve get to those professionals. A little bit about the women who are served by Sojourn House. They are victims of trafficking, mainly sex trafficking. And this term is not at all legally ambiguous, as one of the written letters by the neighbor presented. The U.S. Department of Justice defines it clearly. It's a lengthy definition. I'll save that if anybody needs to see it, but it's defined clearly. It's a complicated definition for a complicated crime. And the Hollywood depiction that a lot of people have, and it comes to mind, is only a small representation of who we serve. In fact, many of these women were trafficked by family members. Trafficking leaves victims with mental and physical scars. People who have been traumatized in such profound ways most often have mental health addiction challenges. Residents of Sojourn House will be no different. Due to these challenges, due to the mental illnesses so often caused by this severe trauma, they are in a protected class according to the Fair Housing Act. These protected disabilities include, but are not limited to, depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, alcoholism, and drug addiction. And it's the Fair Housing Act, we have to think, that makes it unlawful to discriminate based on these factors. The fact is that these women have the right to live inside or outside the city limits. There are little to no group home options for these protected classes in rural settings in Monroe County. In fact, a highlight in the packet that pointed out far less than 1% of the Monroe County is zoned for this type of use, and all of that is in urban areas. We're all well aware of the shortage of housing in the urban zone portions of Monroe County. And for the same reason that many people enjoy living on several acres of land, surrounded by the healing properties of nature and peace and quiet, these women deserve that same basic opportunity. No further development is planned on this property. The house will be used as a home as it was intended, and its purpose will not change. Housing and the support that comes from living in a small family-like community. A very few staff members will be included in order to reach the goals of the program, but they will not live there. As a matter of perspective of the use of this house, my own family that has our house has the same number of bedrooms and actually fewer bedrooms, or bathrooms, same bedrooms, fewer bathrooms at my house than at Kerr Creek, but it's inhabited by 8 people. Because of the role as foster parents my husband and I chose, our house has been a regular hotspot for some of the same services we've discussed for Sojourn House. My family has never had to prove that we had the right to choose our home. And of the 27 children who've been in and out of my home over the years, none of them had to prove why they weren't blood related and why they had the same rights as everyone else to live in a single family home. It's really a very similar model to the housing and program model that Sojourn House is built on, a family setting to grow and thrive. I would like to address a few of the relevant questions from the letters from neighbors preemptively. We are seeking DMHA, or Division of Mental Health and Addiction, residential recovery certification. At this time, the state doesn't offer a licensure for specifically trafficked individual group homes. That doesn't exist. And so we have to look to the components of our program. And when we look at the components of serving them, we seek certification for those components. And part of our programming is to offer continued recovery support. As a level 2 and hopefully 3 home, we can support relapse prevention in this way. As for the concerns for parking and traffic, as shown by the driveways that you saw in the picture, the parking area is very spacious. It was a factor we considered when we purchased the property, and according to the calculations used by the zoning department, we can comfortably park the cars that we need with no impact to our neighbors or passerby. We do indeed take North Gettys Creek Road. As a note, Google Maps favors that route, and so do we. We have regularly had staff, volunteers, board members, contractors, and other agency at the house since purchase, and have yet to find any one of us who prefers Kerr Creek route. We simply won't be traveling it. This house is at the end of Kerr Creek. It's closer to Gettys Creek Road, which is paved well and more appealing to drive. Our traffic pattern will not be so different than any large family, such as the 7-member family who lived in the house for 20 years prior to this purchase. School, work, church, extracurriculars, day-to-day appointments, and the family hosted numerous IU student ministry gatherings. There was plenty of traffic. And thanks now to the fiber installation out there, we have the option of participating on some online versions of service to reduce traffic. In conclusion, I want to make clear that Sojourn House is a 501c3 nonprofit. The unpaid founders of Sojourn House gain nothing but the joy of seeing victims become strong survivors. Our first goal is to provide safe and restorative housing for women who have experienced trafficking, but we also hope to develop positive relationships with our neighbors as we do that. We realize that the not in my backyard attitude is based in understandable fears. However, it is also too often based on the belief that some of us deserve to choose a beautiful rural home and to drive a car to our appointments, while others must be segregated off to only choose urban shelters with bus routes. This is the segregation and discrimination that the Fair Housing Act was created to combat. We respectfully ask that the BZA consider the rights of these women and the protections afforded to them by our state and federal government to live in a community setting of their choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Muncy. Do members of the BZA have questions for Ms. Muncy? Yes, Mr. Daly?
Hi, thank you for being here, and thank you for the work that you do. I'm a fan of the organization. But with that being said, I still have to understand, referring to page 91 in the packet, a letter from Mr. Gould, I believe. He starts off by stating that the nearest convenience store is 3 miles away. There's no public transportation route. Perhaps either he doesn't understand or I don't understand the transportation needs of the individuals in your program that will be presumably residing at this location.
Okay. In the first few months of the program, up to 6 months, they will not have their own vehicle, and so transportation will be provided by staff and volunteers. They'll have some of the regular school type appointments or doctor's appointments, but a lot of the work they'll do will be at the house. And so transportation will be at a minimum, but will be taken care of by our volunteers and staff. After they've secured, met the milestones they need and are safe and able and gain the trust of staff, they'll be able to pursue their driver's license and having a car on the property. So this isn't until much later in the program, which reduces the number of cars there, but it also gives them some independence as they work through the program.
And what is the average stay of a resident in your program? Is this a high turnover? Is this a 6 month? Is this a 3 year?
Oh yeah, thank you. I left that out somewhere. It is a 2-year program. Mm-hmm.
And do people usually stay the whole 2 years? Or
So
do
since we
people-
haven't opened yet, I can't speak to what we've done, but in our survey and our participation in a network of the 92 houses just like ours, the average stay is 18 months to 2 years.
And what is the age range of people staying in your facilities?
18 years is the youngest, and it generally doesn't go over the age of 40.
And so you do anticipate 15 people?
No, 8 is our maximum based on the number of bedrooms and space there.
Okay. Do you have any further questions?
I do not.
Okay.
And
Mr. Daly?
these are adults, no children?
No children.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Ms. Muncy. After all of the people speak, you will have a 5-minute opportunity to rebut. Okay, with that being said, are there members of the public here in this room who would like to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please come to the podium. Are there members of the public who are on Zoom who would like to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please raise your hand on Zoom. Do you see anybody? Are there members of the public who are on the telephone who would like to be recognized to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please raise your hand by pressing *9. We see no one. So if there are members of the public in this room who would like to speak in opposition to this petition, please come to the podium and sign in, and then I will swear you in. And you each will have 3 minutes.
I'm going to talk fast.
So would you please raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And would you kindly state your name and what county in which you reside?
My name is Marcia Minton, and I live in Monroe County.
Thank you, Ms. Minton. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I have lived on Kerr Creek Road for 17 years, and I'm here to ask you to deny this petition for a variance. Kerr Creek Road is extremely rural and isolated. The entirety of the road falls within the Monroe watershed. Along with the beauty in our spot, we have limited services and rural challenges. We have no public transportation. Cell service can be sketchy and nearly impossible unless you use one provider. Trash and recycling services can be handled by the individual if they are willing to travel 11 miles round trip to Unionville, or they can use expensive private contractors. The county plows our road in the winter, but travel is difficult. Both entrances to Kerr Creek present steep hills and/or curving roads along unprotected and significant drop-offs. Without a four-wheel drive, you will find yourself housebound for days. Stevens Creek and Kerr Creek frequently flood, covering parts of the road with water and obstructing forest debris. Kerr Creek is heavily forested, and falling trees are frequent. They obstruct travel and cause multiple long periods of power outages throughout the year. Several residents have generators because of this frequency. Sojourn House has admirable a mission for their clients. But in education, if one of their clients wants to earn a GED or participate in vocational classes, nothing is close. A round trip to Bloomington South is 17.6 miles. Bloomington North, 20 miles. Ivy Tech, 26 miles. Hoosier Hills Career Center, 20 miles. Employment, jobs can be fine, they may not be close, and travel difficulties, as I've described, may cause absences that will affect employment. And as far as sustainability and reintegration into society, clients cannot reenter society if they are isolated from it. We are distrustful of how Sojourn might operate going forward because they have not respected the process of this request. They bought the property before they received their use of determination. Their website has already announced they are moving prior to tonight's decision, and there's been great activity at the house indicating they are moving in. Additionally, I don't think they realize the physical and fiscal resources needed to maintain their nearly 8-acre property. If they cannot maintain it, the neighborhood will suffer. Sojourn House bought this property for a greatly reduced price, far below its value. They can resell it and get a hefty profit to purchase something in a more urban setting, offering more services, which I believe will be more appropriate for the success of their stated goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Minton. Would the next person please come up and sign in, and then I'll swear you in. Sir, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And could you please state your name and in which county you reside?
My name is Bill Weeks. I reside in Monroe County
Thank
at
you.
6573 East Kerr Creek Road.
Thank you.
And I want to briefly, because of the time, respectfully address some specific issues with respect to the staff recommendation to approve the application for a variance. First, it's unclear what the staff means to me when it says a use could be considered in line with single-family use. The proposed use, as we have heard, envisions a rotating roster of 8 people who need consistent therapy and care, which will be provided daily by professional staff and volunteers who are not residents. That is not a single-family use. The proposed land use needs to be evaluated for what it actually is. Second, the staff suggests, without saying so, that federal law might require approval of the application. Most provisions of the cited laws, as I have seen through the material they gave, are not applicable in this case. It is true that illegal discrimination is prohibited. Illegal discrimination would occur if the proposed use were treated differently than other uses with similar relationships to the zoning objectives. Our zoning classification is designed to preserve the agricultural and rural residents' character of the area. If, for example, group residence for people who aren't mentally ill or disabled or trafficked were permitted and approved, but this one were denied, that might be illegal discrimination. But there's no evidence of that. Further, the zoning ordinance does provide reasonable accommodation for the use. It is permitted in 3 zoning classifications. Indeed, the county supported a once proposed location in Steinsville. Within the urban residential and 2 named business zones, there are many, many potential sites that are permissible for this use. Next, staff and others have suggested that state law might prohibit excluding this use. Indiana Code 122847 does not have that effect. It simply says that you cannot exclude the use solely because it involves too many unrelated people or a business. As I've just pointed out, there are lots of reasons that you might deny this use that don't have, and they're important, that don't have anything to do with the presence of unrelated people or the fact that it's a business. State law acknowledges that possibility. Fourth, and this is very important, if the ordinance is outdated, and if the proposed use is more widely allowed in other jurisdictions, this forum, this evening, this variance is not the place to fix it. Those contentions should be made and debated in a regular process for amending the zoning law. The task here is to administer the county zoning ordinance that has been properly adopted and is currently in place. And under that ordinance, you should not grant the application for a variance in this case.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. And the next person who would like to speak in opposition to this petition, if you would kindly sign in. Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And if you would be careful to speak into the microphone, that would help. And please state your name and the county in which you reside.
My name is Peter Wold, and I'm a resident of Monroe County. I live at 7165 Kerr Creek Road.
Yes, and you have 3 minutes to talk with us about this.
Right. Thank you. We moved here in 1990 to Kerr Creek Road. Since the area is zoned Ag RR, we were confident that we could enjoy our home for the rest of our lives. Today, I'm going to talk about the 5 standards that you have to consider under 812-5 to grant a variance, and none of those were addressed in the plan staff recommendation, so I will. Number 1, health, safety, and welfare. There definitely will be increased traffic. Applicants say they'd access the house via Gettys Creek Road. That's not realistic, and as we all saw on Sunday, the cars that were parked there came via Kerr Creek Road. Most of the residents on Kerr and Gettys Creek Road, in fact, do use Kerr Creek Road to get to town. In addition to staff members and volunteers commuting, there will be many daily client round trips for education, jobs, shopping, etc. Marsha already mentioned the flooding. I will add that at times in flooding, the road is impassable. Also, we've seen the 7505 driveway underwater for days when it's flooded. Security and safety. The sheriff's average 911 response time to 7505 is 6 minutes. The fire and EMT response time is about 11 minutes. These do increase if units are already out on other calls. There will be no trained security personnel at this site. When abusers or stalkers arrive at a group home, response times are critical. Alarms and cameras only record history. I also want to mention that the house is adjacent to state forest, where 11 months a year there are men in the woods with firearms, and in our case, hunters often trespass on neighboring properties. I want to mention that the applicant built a fire pit very near combustible brush. Stray sparks and fire endanger 7505, the state forest, and neighbors' properties. Number 2, use and value. Property values will likely drop due to use as a not-profit group home business. Retired area residents, including me, rely on our home equity values to pay for aging in place. Peculiar property condition. There is no. Unnecessary hardship. If denied, the house has reasonable economic use as a single-family residence. There could be other options for the applicant. As Bill mentioned, there are 3 zones that allow group homes without a variance. And on Sunday, I noticed a number of 4-bedroom homes in the same price range on Zillow, all within walking distance to public transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Gould.
Thank you. Please
Thank you for
deny.
your comments and for your letter. And if the next person is here who would like to speak in opposition to this petition, please sign in. Would you please raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And state your name and in which county you reside.
My name is Jerry Mandel, and I'm a resident of Monroe County.
Thank you, Mr. Mandel. You have 3 minutes.
All right. My wife Betsy and I live at 7405 East Kerr Creek Road. We moved there in 1980 to live close to nature alongside the state forest. Especially important for us was having zoning that would protect our investment and our lifestyle. The 3 previous speakers have shown that Sojourn House fails to satisfy all 5 criteria used by the BZA to evaluate variances. Therefore, and I'll kind of summarize here. Number 1, approving this variance will be injurious to public health, safety, and general welfare of the local community. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to 7505 will be affected in substantially adverse ways. Number 3, there is no special need for the variance for some condition particular to the property involved. All the properties here are zoned Ag RR. The strict application, number 4, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will not constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought. They chose the wrong location and can recoup their investment by selling the house. Number 5, the approval would interfere substantially with the intentions of the comprehensive plan as it stands currently. Number 6, it's important to realize no federal or state law, as was stated by a previous person, requires you to approve the application. And the suggestion that the use is effectively a single-family residence is simply wrong as a matter of fact and as a matter of law. So in conclusion, you've heard from a number of neighbors today who live on this road and who oppose this variance. We are opposed to allowing Sojourn House to operate as a group home Class 2 at 7505 East Kerr Creek Road. We're opposing this variance, and we ask you deny variance VAR 23-5. We all live there. We know that place does not serve our community in that location. We thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Mandel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other members here in this room who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? Yes, sir, please come up and sign in. Please raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And what is your name, and what county do you reside?
My name is Rusty Peterson. I live in Monroe County.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
I live at 1400 North Gettys Creek Road. I share a property line with Kerr Creek property across the creek, basically. I feel kind of torn about this. I really do appreciate the mission and intent of Sojourn House. But I fall in allegiance with the neighbors who have given letters of remonstrance. I think the biggest concern really for me, I think, is that the ordinance allows for 15 people, even if they're stating 8 is their max. I mean, theoretically, they could have 15 people, plus volunteers, plus staff. The map that was shown earlier of the floodplain and the septic shows the septic in the floodplain. It seems to me that maybe I'm missing something in the process, but that septic should trump the concerns of the variance at this point. As far as, seems like we ought to determine whether or not it can be, the site can be used to sustain 15 people before changing the use.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Do you have anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there other members of the community who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? Okay, I'd like to go to Zoom. Are there members of the public who are on Zoom who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? If so, please raise your virtual hand to be recognized. Okay, are there members of the public who are on the telephone who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? If so, please press *9 in order to be recognized. Okay, with that being said, Ms. Muncy, you have a 5-minute rebuttal period, and you're still under oath, of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Some good points raised that I'd like to speak to. I'll go with the last one that was mentioned, which is the septic system, and that's a very valid concern with it being on or near the floodplain. The evaluation during the hopeful site plan would cover some of the issues there, but we've gone off of the history of the septic system there, which is it has supported large family stress on that septic system for over 20 years without any concerns or default of the septic system itself. We realize that isn't a fail-proof way to determine what it'll do in the future, but we are eager to have all of that evaluated as well and make any amendments to it that are needed. A few comments were made about all of the other places we could go. If this isn't the place for us, if we sell it, we could go elsewhere. And I'd just like to bring back to 2 points, is that there really are not many other properties already zoned for this use, especially that would allow, parking that we have at Kerr Creek, that would allow outdoor sanctuary that Kerr Creek has, and that only, far less than 1% of this county actually would allow us to do what we're doing without any kind of variance. So there's a very small area that we actually could move to, and then we would be hard pressed to find the one that was for sale and open to us. That particular unique issue is that anywhere we go in Monroe County is going to be a difficult situation for us. And if we are not able to use residential settings, single-family homes, we would have to move outside of the county, and that would be a loss for this county. The safety concerns by neighbors are fair. I do want to mention that the fire pit they mentioned by a tree line has been there and used well before we ever moved in. It was already well loved and used. We dropped a couple of benches beside it that we had, but we haven't used it. But that's fine for a site plan. We can examine that. We do have layers of prevention and layers of safety plans to address some of the nature of the idea that traffickers or stalkers would be approaching the property. First of all, based on our information from similar organizations that do the same thing we do, is that simply isn't a risk that they've had come to light. Traffickers often find these women as disposable, and once those women are gone and out and removed, they move on. But we are willing to relocate women who are in danger because of their trafficking history, and we have the means to do so. Pre-screening with the women who are wishing to enter the program is a layer of that as well. We do have safety plans in the house for intruder or any problems with somebody coming to the house. We cannot disclose the safety plan fully to the public because it's confidential, but it's in place. We have not ignored the fact that we need that. As for the concerns, for all of the challenges to living out here and having women out there, I thank you for those concerns, but I have to ask, why on earth do you live there if it's so hard to live there? I have to think that maybe it's not such a bad place to live and so dangerous with hunters and flooding, and it sounds barbaric, but it's really not. It's just rural. It's 7 minutes from Target, which is pretty close also to the bus line, about another 30 seconds from the bus line from Target. That isn't really an obstacle that isn't reasonable to overcome. I'd also like to look at, we know how to purchase generators. We know how to use those generators. The women can be trained, the staff can be trained. These are great skills for any adult to learn, and so we're eager to teach all of that. I thank the neighbors for being concerned. It's fine that they're concerned for their safety, but I have to say that I hear a lot more of what they think is best for the women than what their safety concerns are. And what's best for the women is really up to Sojourn House and not the neighbors. We have plans in place to take good care of these women and help them be successful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Muncy. Okay, we come back to members of the Board of Zoning Appeals for further discussion and/or a motion.
I'd like to revert back to a question for staff.
Yes. Yes.
Might have formed it by now. Reverting to that letter starts on page 91. It was compelling, and it leads me to ask staff about 812-5. You've recommended approval. What was your basis for recommending approval on letter D, as in Delta?
D that you're referencing, you're talking about the strict application will constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied, which is defined as significant economic injury that arises from the strict application of this ordinance to the conditions of a particular existing parcel of property effectively deprive the parcel owner of all reasonable economic use of the property, and is clearly more significant than compliance cost of the, or practical difficulties. So the uses that are permitted under Ag RR include a single-family residential unit. By classifying this group as a group home because of their lack of familial status or other, characteristics that are not typical to our definition of family, we're saying that they're excluded from some of the uses that would be permitted otherwise in Ag RR, such as single-family use. So it's identifying this use more in line with a single-family residential use, and that's how we are able to come to the recommendation of approval.
Follow up. There's testimony that there's less than 1% of property in this county. Can you shed some light as to the validity of that?
Thank you. I was going to bring that up as well, so thank you for bringing that up. So the statement in the staff report, it says there's only 12 acres of property throughout the county zoned urban residential, which comprises of far less than 1% of the county jurisdiction area. I will mention that that doesn't include the limited business zone, the general business zone, or the zones that are administered by 833, which is the fringe zones. So I did a quick calculation over here, and it's more like 4.8% of the county. But that's rough. That's a rough estimate. So 1% is just the far less is the UR, the urban residential, which is the residential district. This use is permitted in the outskirts of the county, so not the 2-mile fringe area that we typically consider. So there is far less than 1% of that zoning district.
So for clarification for my own behalf, your justification for the hardship is that they are not classified as a single family unit, therefore, perhaps I'm still not swallowing that as well.
Yeah, so because of our definition of group home class 2, so we have a defined group home class 2, which is what we've said that this group qualifies as. The state code makes it clear that yes, you can have provisions in your zoning ordinance that relate to this type of use, or residential care for mentally ill, but it cannot exclude people based on their familial status alone or that it's a business alone. There's other sections of group home that still we're saying are to be administered, but we're not allowed to exclude them specifically because they're not related or because this is a business. So we're coming to the conclusion that this is similar to a single-family residential use, which is permitted in Ag RR, and all uses for this group of people together would not be permitted in as it's structured right now.
And I heard you say that that justification is passed along for people that are mentally ill. I heard the petitioner specifically state that these are trafficked individuals, and I heard no mention of mental illness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in the staff packet, we've included definitions from the state statute that mentally ill is, for the purposes of IC-12-28-4, a psychiatric disorder that substantially disturbs an individual's thinking, feeling, or behavior and impairs the individual's ability to function. So under the screening process that the Sojourn House has, which we've included as well in the letter, we believe that they're falling under that definition.
But yet they do not have a certificate of mental health in play for this particular facility. Is that correct?
You mean someone on staff that has that certificate?
Yeah, they don't have a certification to provide those services based on mental health.
I'm not sure of the required certifications of that. Mm-hmm. Maybe the petitioner could speak a little bit to that.
Yes.
Sorry.
I thought I heard you say that, Ms. Muncy.
Yes, it is a fine line there. So while we did say it's not a mental health treatment facility in a clinical sense, we'll have licensed staff like an RN and clinical staff who can deal with the mental health aspect of what's going on. And then we'll be pursuing DMHA certification so that we'll be qualified to.
Okay, thank you.
So, while you're here,
Sure.
may I?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So the staff, are they residential staff? So they check out and check in?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have questions, Mr. Lofton?
Are all of the residents been determined to be mentally ill?
Yes. So that would be part of their intake process to determine that they do have mental illnesses. I want to clarify that these mental illnesses include anxiety and depression. These are things that aren't rare or severe, but they do qualify as mental illness as well as complex PTSD.
Some of them have alcoholism?
Yes.
But some don't?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Muncy.
I'll note that Dee Owens has arrived and that she has her hand raised.
Okay, can she participate in this even though she wasn't here from the beginning?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So Ms. Owens?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I read the packet, all the materials, of course, and I would like to say that what I read that came, the materials submitted by Sojourn were straight up insofar as DMHA certification goes, insofar as what was just said as far as anxiety and depression. Yes, those are mental illnesses, and there are many people running around everywhere with those mental illnesses that don't have to have a certificate to live in a house. They are not paranoid schizophrenics, or they would not be admitted to the house. So I think that's kind of a nuance that I've worked in the field for many, many years, and that's a nuance that isn't really make difference except insofar as the law goes. And then I see what the issue is there. I think that I read that their staff, while staff would be coming and going, there would be volunteers at the house. And I wanted to ask Ms. Muncy if the volunteers are overnight volunteers. Would that be correct?
Are the volunteers overnight volunteers?
Yes.
She said not necessarily.
And she said moments ago that they were not residential treatment staff.
Correct. Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, I've been here for some time. No, I understand that, but there are staff and then there are volunteers. So sometimes facilities will have volunteers stay overnight so that there's someone there 24/7. That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. So all of these added components, I'm hearing volunteers, residential, or staff, volunteers, residential people in an area that it sounds very intense compared to what exactly exists there now. So I don't find it to be in keeping with the use in the area adjacent to the property. I just find that the intensity of use, the location of services, et cetera, to be rather remote, and that to me, that doesn't seem to fit in with the single-family zoning definition, and that the intensity is quite high, and it, from what the residents have said, that they think it would be disruptive, not only to their way of life, but to the values of their property, is what I have heard tonight. So I'm just going to put it out there that I plan to vote no. But with that being said, there are other questions for Ms. Muncy or for staff, or any further deliberation among ourselves?
Well, to me, it's a wonderful program. To me, this is not an issue of the program. This is an issue of zoning. And the other very unfortunate thing is that they thought they were going to be allowed to do it, and then it turned out that this was a premature indication of something that we thought was going to happen, and it didn't work out, and they bought the property in reliance on that. But that doesn't change the zoning ordinance. It may change it's unfortunate, and maybe there's, I don't know how that's going to work out, but it doesn't change the zoning. And it seems to me that it's almost every item is a stretch to me to get it to fall in, much less saying we meet all those criteria.
Yes.
Given that, I move.
We have one panelist, I believe Ms. Owens has her hand raised.
I'm sorry, I didn't see
Sorry.
that. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all right, thank you. Actually, I intend to vote the opposite. 4 people in a facility, even though it can be licensed for 8, 4 people in a facility with a staff person coming and going every now and then is not disruptive. As was pointed out, these women are not going to be chased down by dangerous people or anything. They've gotten away from that. I just don't, I agree with Guy that it's obviously, we may have a zoning issue, but there also are state laws, and because we don't happen to have a slot that perfectly fits something, to me, is a hardship on the people that have already bought this property. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Owens. Now, if there's a motion, we can then take a vote. So, Mr. Lofton, you had begun a motion.
I move to deny the variance for Sojourn House with regret, but based on my understanding of my duties. So variance 23, I move to deny variance 23-5 Sojourn House Inc. Use variance to group home class 2 in chapter 802 at 7505 East Kerr Creek Road.
Is there a second?
While supporting the mission, I tend to agree that that 812-5 has not been satisfied. I second.
Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded?
It's been moved and seconded to deny VAR-23-5, which is the Sojourn House Inc. use variance for group home class 2. A vote yes is a vote to deny the use variance. Guy Loftman?
Yes.
Dee Owens?
No.
Margaret Clemens?
Yes.
Skip Daly?
Yes.
Okay, the use variance has been denied by a vote of 3-1.
Okay. Thank you to members of the public for coming. I'm sorry to the Sojourn House that this did not go in your favor. We wish you the best of luck, and we look forward to supporting your cause somewhere in our community. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, we move on now to item number 9 in the agenda, and that's VAR-23-6, the Taylor minimum lot width variance to Chapter 804 concerning 1 2.5 plus or minus acre parcel in Richland Township, Section 21 at 2968 North Loudon Road, and that is currently zoned Ag RR. And Mr. Smith, if you would be so kind as to walk us through this.
Thank you, Margaret. The petitioners are requesting a minimum lot width variance to Chapter 804. The purpose is to bring into compliance a roughly 650 square foot addition to the existing residence. It is located in the Agricultural Reserve, or Ag RR. Chapter 804 requires that structures built in this zone must meet a minimum lot width of 200 feet. It was discovered that the existing residence was never built behind the building line, which was delineated on the Marcus Sinyard plat that was approved in the year 2004. Because the existing residence was built in front of the building line for this lot, the residence is considered non-conforming, which makes the addition to the residence also non-conforming. The petitioners have submitted a building permit, R-22-1362, which details the construction of the building addition, and that is noted as an after the fact. Here's a quick look at the location and site condition maps respectively. As you can see, there do not appear to be any environmental concerns surrounding the lot. I have shown on the screen here the issue that, with this property. On the left side of the screen shows the plat with the building line. It's highlighted in yellow to indicate where the building line, where the structure should go. On the right side of the screen is where the building line is as it relates to the structure on the property as it is right now. And then these are just some aerial images of the property. This is facing north. On the right side of the screen, you'll notice the square, the red square. It shows where the addition took place. These images just show more aerial imagery of the property facing east and west, respectively. Here we have the petitioner's letter to the BZA, as well as their site plan that was submitted, and I'll leave that on the screen for a little bit. Okay. This is the Marcus Sinyard Minor Subdivision Final Plat. The petitioner's residence is located on Lot 2. And finally, staff recommends approval of VAR-23-6, minimum lot width to Chapter 804, given that it would meet the practical difficulty standards and that the minimum lot width cannot be reached due to the location of the pre-existing residence having been built in front of the building line than was delineated on the final plat.
Okay, well, thank you. With that being said, is the petitioner or the petitioner's representative here? And if so, would you please come to the podium and sign in? And you'll have 15 minutes to make your case to us. If you'd sign in, and I'll swear you in. And
I'm not really sure if I have a case to, I can answer some questions maybe, but.
We'll talk about that. Just so you need to sign in, and then I'll swear you in.
I feel like I'm getting pulled over.
Okay, would you kindly raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And please state your name and in which county you reside.
Levi Taylor, Monroe County.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. So talk to us about what you want and why you want it.
I want to be able to get approved for a building permit. That's why I'm here.
Okay. Okay, great. So with that
Compelling.
being said, do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have any questions for Mr. Taylor?
I do not.
I do not. And let's see if any,
No,
he does?
Mr. Daly say,
Do you have a question, Mr. Daly? No? Okay, it's not necessary. We can move on to members of the public who are here in support of this petition. You each have 3 minutes if you would kindly sign in, and then I'll swear you in and have you state your name and your county of residence. It's good to see you, Perry. Please. Sorry. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And would you kindly state your name and where you live?
My name's Perry Robinson,
Yes.
Monroe County.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson.
I just stand up here for
Levi. He's a young man. You know, Ellettsville and Monroe County, there's a lot of things going on over in that neck of the woods. So people talk and, you know, you can do this over in Ellettsville, but you can't do this in Monroe County. Kid's a young man's got a family, trying to do the best he can for his family. I believe that ground has been his grandpa's for many years. And it'll be in the Sinyard family for many years. So I hope you guys will grant this for him and let him move on with his life and his kids' lives. And
Well, thank you for coming out to support this petition. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this petition in this room? Or anybody online who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Yes, ma'am. Please come up and please sign in, and then I'll swear you in.
If we can get a pen.
Thanks for coming out tonight and waiting through a lengthy deliberation. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name and your county.
Tina Sinyard, Monroe County.
Thank you.
And I'm just here to ask for the approval due to, it is
Could
my
you
daughter.
speak in the mic, please?
Oh, sorry. It is my daughter. This is her husband. That's my son-in-law. My father-in-law passed away who put this home there. And that was 20 years ago this year. So we were not under the understanding of where the house was supposed to be placed because we weren't involved. But they're just trying, like I said, they're just trying to do for their kids. And the entire Marcus Sinyard subdivision is all family. And it's been family for 40 plus years. We now have our grandchildren on that property that will take over that property at one point. So it's always going to stay in the family. And we would have put the house in the right place if we had put it there, but we did not. So I didn't know that. And we was always told by other contractors when they did this addition that if we did it ourselves, we didn't have to have a permit in the building department. And I didn't realize, though, that the house was not on the right part of the property. And of course, I can't pick it up to move it. Yeah. So I just don't want my daughter to have to move or do anything to make room for all of her kids.
Right.
So I'd rather them to stay on the family property with us because it makes it easier for us all to take care of each other. That's the only reason I'm asking for approval. Well, and it's just the fact that everybody involved that put that house in is all deceased.
Yes, and the young man has his mother-in-law's approval. So thank you so much.
He's got to keep my kids there.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this petition? I will move to online then. Anybody on Zoom or on the telephone who would like to speak in favor of this petition, please either raise your virtual hand on Zoom or press *9. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? If there's no one, then there's no rebuttal, so we can move to a further discussion and/or a motion.
Just staff real quick, you're finding compliance with 812-6, is that correct? Yes. Both A, B, and C meet your standards of approval?
Yes.
Yes.
No environmental concerns, no? All right. I'll make a motion based on the recommendation of staff that we approve variance case number 23-6 based on it fulfilling the criterion of 812-6.
A second.
Oh, D seconded, okay, great.
It's been moved and seconded to approve VAR-23-6, the Taylor minimum lot width variance to Chapter 804. A vote in favor is a vote to approve the variance. D. Owens?
Yes.
Margaret Clemens?
Yes?
Skip Daly?
Yes.
Guy Loftman?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming out, and many blessings to your family. Yes, take care. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to item number 10, CDU-23-1, Myers Automobile Repair Services, minor conditional use request to Chapter 813 concerning 6 plus or minus acre parcel in Richland Township, Section 11 at 8567 West Vernal Pike. And this is currently zoned Ag RR. And Mr. Brown, if you would kindly talk us through this.
Thank you. So the purpose of this request is one conditional use variance to Chapter 813, a automobile repair services minor. The purpose is to utilize the property as such. Staff has concluded that the use of the property is proposed as, I think that might be an error, I apologize. So other regulations include requirements for conditional use in Chapter 813 and use-specific conditions from Chapter 802. Chapter 802 defines a automobile repair services minor as the replacement of any mechanical parts or repair of any mechanical parts, including the removal of the engine head or pan, engine transmission or differential, and upholstering service as an accessory to a residential use. The requirements for conditional use are quite lengthy. Number A is the requested conditional use is one of the conditional uses listed in Chapter 813-8 for the traditional county planning jurisdiction, or Table 33-3 for the former fringe, for the zoning district in which the subject property is located. In addition to the other relevant standards imposed by or pursuant to this chapter, the standards, uses, and conditions set forth in Chapter 813-8 are hereby incorporated as standards, use, and conditions of this chapter. B, all conditions, regulations, and development standards required in the zoning ordinance shall be satisfied. C, granting the conditional use shall not conflict with the general purposes of the zoning ordinance or its goals and objectives with the comprehensive plan. D, the conditional use property can be served with adequate utilities, access streets, drainage, and other necessary facilities. E, the conditional use shall not involve any element or cause any condition that might be dangerous, injurious, or noxious to any other property or persons, and shall comply with the performance standards delineated in this ordinance. F, the conditional use shall be situated, oriented, and landscaped, including buffering, to produce a harmonious relationship of buildings and grounds with the adjacent structures, properties, and uses. G, the conditional use shall produce a total visual impression and environment which is consistent with the environment of the neighborhood. H, the conditional use shall organize vehicular access and parking to minimize traffic congestion in the neighborhood. And I, all permits required by federal, state, and local agencies have been obtained. As for use-specific conditions, according to Chapter 802, there are 2 conditions that are used in this proposed use. First is number 50, is unlawful for any person to engage in minor vehicle repair or maintenance unless conducted in accordance with the following conditions. 1, conducted inside a fully enclosed garage located on a parcel 5 acres in size or greater. 2, applies to passenger automobiles and trucks not in excess of 7,000 pounds gross weight. 3, no more than 5 vehicles shall be stored on the premises. 4, no vehicle may be stored beyond 60 days. 5, vehicles stored outdoors must be screened from view in all directions by an appropriate fence or similar enclosure. 6, vehicles intended for parts, engines, transmissions, and all similar items to be used in the future repairs shall be stored indoors. 7, the uses shall follow all home-based business design standards. And then there is Chapter 53, which says it's only permitted on lots 5 acres or greater in the agricultural rural reserve, conservation residential, and forest reserve zoning districts. And here on the left is a zoning map of the area. As you can see, it is AgRR, as is much of the surrounding area. The map on the left is the slope. There is some slope on this property, but it seems largely to be compliant within the subject site. These are photos of the site in particular. The image on the left shows more the house, and the image on the right more shows the proposed garage. And as does the image on the left here with a sort of banner displaying the business. And this is the proposed site map on the right as well. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use petition for automobile repair service minor for Chapter 802 and 813, based on the ability to meet the conditions of conditional use in Chapter 813 with one condition, that the petitioner applies for a land use certificate for the automobile repair service minor use on the property.
Okay, so do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for Mr. Brown?
I do not.
I don't have any questions. I can't see when Dee has her hand raised.
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that being said, if the petitioner is here, the petitioner's representative, if you would come up to the podium. Sir, are you Mr. Myers? Yes. Yeah, thank you. If you would kindly sign in. And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And would you state your name for the record and the county in which you reside?
My name is Jerry Myers, and I live in Monroe County.
Thank you. So you have 15 minutes to talk to us about this.
Okay. Basically, about 7 months ago, I decided to quit working for other people, working on cars, and open up my own business. Spent a lot of money with LegalZoom. Got the big old package. Congratulations. Here's everything you need to start your business. Found out I wasn't completely compliant. Did what I needed to do to get that taken care of. Ended up being here for this meeting. All I'm trying to do is build hot rods. I love old cars. I'd rather save a car than see it go to a scrapyard. Or I have hot rods myself. I mean, they're fun. But other than that, I'm just trying to do things the right way, should we say.
Well, we sure appreciate that.
And that's just it for me.
Okay, thank you. Do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for Mr. Myers?
I do not.
I do not. Okay, thank you, sir. And
Thank
we
you.
will ask the members of the public if they want to speak in favor of it.
Okay.
And you may be back here.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Here in the room, or on Zoom, or on the telephone? Please let us know that you'd like to speak. Are there members of the public who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? Please come up to the podium and sign in. Please raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and please state your name and the county in which you reside.
My name is Logan Taylor Tedrow. I'm a member of the Bar of Indiana. I'm an attorney representing Mr. James Jacobs, and I reside in Monroe County.
Okay.
And before my time begins, I would like to make 2 requests of the board. One is for leave to present my exhibits to the board and to have them admitted into evidence. And the second is to pre-lodge a request for an extension of time pursuant to the board's discretion, should it be necessary.
Okay, let me ask staff, are you able to take his exhibits?
Yes, we just need a copy as well to keep it in the record. So if you pass it out to the BZA members, just make sure one gets to us for the record. Thank you.
And so what will happen after you begin and after you're finished presenting, we will vote on whether or not you have an extension of time or whether or not we hear the case tonight. So vote on the case tonight.
Do you have this digitally as well? We have one member that is not present. Okay.
We can't, I'm sorry, if you don't mind repeating that into the record.
Madam Chair, in response to Board Member Daley's request, is this better?
Yes.
Very well. In response to Board Member Daley's question about whether I have these exhibits prepared in electronic form, the answer is no. I would be happy to furnish them to the board after the hearing tonight if we need, and if the board decides that this should be continued another month, I would not object.
Okay, thank you, and you have 3 minutes.
Very well. I thank the board and the chair for the privilege to speak. I represent Mr. James Jacobs, owner of property at 8561 West Vernal Pike, Bloomington, otherwise known as Lot 2 in the Shields Minor Subdivision Plat 1. I'm here to speak on Mr. Jacobs' behalf in opposition to Permit 23-1. My client filed the board complaint noted in the agenda in December of this past year. The investigation was started as a result, and I'm here to present his case. You'll find in your stack of exhibits that Exhibit A is a copy of Mr. Jacobs' deed, simply to show his standing to oppose. Exhibit B is a copy of a 2005 survey performed when Mr. Jacobs purchased the property. It shows his property in the center, noted as Shields Lot Number 2. The existence of a 25-foot ingress and egress easement is noted in the bottom left corner and mapped in the top left corner. The easement is gravel. It's a driveway that connects Vernal Pike and winds across 4 properties, including the petitioner's property, before ending on my client's property. Thereby, 2 property owners must pass by Duop's Hot Rods garage to reach their land and homes. Exhibits C, D, and E are primarily there simply to stress that these are hot rods that are involved, though I will direct your attention to Exhibit C, which is a certified copy of the Articles of Organization and Change of Registered Agent Notice for Duop's Hot Rods and Repair, LLC, that notes that the business was established only in February of 2022, and the registered agent was changed again 2 months later. My client, on the other hand, took possession of his parcel in 2005. Moving forward to Exhibit F, you'll find a signed letter from real estate broker and appraiser Bill Howard. Though we did not have time to seek a full appraisal given the high demand in the current real estate market, Mr. Howard nonetheless took the time to issue his professional opinion based on 40 years of experience that the existence of any commercial enterprise next to my client's property will negatively impact the value of his property, both in terms of real cost and marketing cost. Exhibit G you will find is a photograph taken by my client depicting a record completely blocking the easement for upward of 45 minutes, fully preventing him from leaving his home. He notes this is a regular occurrence, and it no doubt significantly further devalues his property and enjoyability. Exhibit H you will find is a signed summative statement from my client confirming what I have just described to you. He further posits therein that he regularly hears loud, abrasive sounds from the work being performed at Duop's Hot Rods, even despite the nearly 1,000 feet separating his own home from the work garage. As I begin, I would first note that if we were discussing a full zoning variance, actually, let me skip ahead to respect the board's time. The main thrust of my objection is that the application simply does not satisfy all conditional use criteria. Section 813.5 says that all 9 criteria, plus those listed in 813.8, must be met for a conditional use application to be approved. I argue that Duop's Hot Rods fails to meet at least 4 of those under 813.5. First is subsection C. As briefly discussed a moment ago, given the general purposes described in the comprehensive plan, Duop's a noise-producing, traffic-inviting, and drive-blocking operation hardly matches the purpose of rural zoning. Rural zones exist to protect spacious and quiet living choices. A hot rod shop has the opposite impact. Subsection E.
Thank you, sir.
Your time.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Are there other members of the public who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? Are there members of the public online or on Zoom who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? Okay, so going back, I believe that Mr. Myers has a 5-minute rebuttal. I'd like to ask Mr. Schilling about this particular packet that we received. Have you received this or had an opportunity to read? Would you take a minute to review it? Yes, Mr. Daly.
I've got a question for staff.
Yes, please.
If I may. One, are these papers that typically have a deadline prior submitting articles of evidence? Is that typically deadlined prior to the hearing?
So people are able to introduce evidence at the meeting.
Sure.
But alternatively, if they want it to be reviewed in the packet, we do ask that it be submitted 1 week prior to the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting.
All right. I'm going to ask for time to look at this and to read the attorney's transcript, I couldn't understand a word. You went very quickly, and you did that because of your time limit, and that's fine, and it's on the record, but I don't know anything that you said. And this packet has not been provided to a member of the board that is on Zoom right now. And if you want this, I don't know. I don't know if it should be considered or not.
I would like to ask Mr. Schilling to kindly explain this sheriff's deed to us. Mr. Schilling is our
Exhibit
county
A.
attorney. Pardon me?
Exhibit A.
Exhibit A, yes. To Mr. Jacobs.
Excuse me, Dave, is your microphone on?
Oh, Dee has a question
sorry,
after
Dee.
Mr. Schilling is done.
Yeah, this is just
Thank you.
a sheriff's deed from a foreclosure action. The previous owner's property was foreclosed and the sheriff sold it to Mr. Jacobs. So this is just evidence of Mr. Jacobs' ownership of the property.
I see. And so, essentially, it boils down to a dispute over, I guess, a conditional use for the automotive repair features that Mr. Myers would like to conduct on Vernal Pike, right? Okay, so coming back to members of the Board of Zoning Appeals, I see that Ms. Owens has her hand raised, and then we can take a motion or discuss it even further.
Thank you. I did, that's the benefit of having a microphone, is that Mr. Daly couldn't hear, but I could. And no, I haven't reviewed the documents, but I do have commentary, and that is that I too live in the country because I like quiet. However, I have people around me with families, and at the most inopportune times, especially when I want to have meals, my neighbors run their four-wheelers around loud all the time. They, on weekend nights minimum, shoot all the time and terrify my dogs and scare me sometimes. They work on loud cars. They have lots of cars coming in and out. That is just a function of life wherever we are. And we may not like it, but I'm sorry, it's the same way at my house. That was just my comment.
Thank you, Ms. Owens. So I'd like to bring it back to us here in the room, and Mr. Daly, if you'd like to. I mean, I have one question, and that is there an economic hardship to Mr. Myers by delaying 1 month? Is there an economic hardship to you and your business by delaying the decision on this and delivering?
Yes, I had basically received a cease and desist order.
Yes.
And I haven't worked.
I see.
So that was my only means of income.
I see.
And I've called my customers. I have a 66 Le Mans. I'm in the process of cloning into a GTO for a gentleman who's a good friend of mine. And I've just told him I can't even work on it. I can't do nothing.
Do you make a lot of noise?
No. Mr. Jacobs' house, it started out there as me and my wife got married and moved out there. My mother-in-law lived next door. Her aunt and uncle, who got an easement for this driveway from my mother-in-law in the beginning, lived at the very top of the hill. During that time, her uncle gave 6 acres to his son. Her uncle and her cousin ended up moving. So Mr. Jacobs got the house through a bank foreclosure because the people that did own the house got divorced. There was a bunch of meth heads living up there. Police went up there, ran 13 people off the place. So, I mean, but as a hardship, I haven't been able to work at all.
And you have 6 acres?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So these are the facts that I'd like us to consider and to see if we could decide this case tonight, because we've heard everything, and I think we understand it.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the conditional use petition for Mr. Myers Auto Repair Service with the condition that he applies for the land use certificate for the automobile repair service minor.
Okay, is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, then let's have a vote.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the conditional use request CDU-23-1, Myers Automobile Repair Services Minor. In a vote yes is a vote to approve the conditional use. Margaret Clemens?
Yes.
Skip Daly?
Abstention.
Guy Loftman?
Yes.
Dee Owens?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the conditional use, passes 3-0.
Well, okay, and I'd like to just say one thing before the neighbors leave. There is no substitute for good neighbors. Nothing that we can do here at the Board of Zoning Appeals, nothing that we can do here in the county can compensate for good neighbors. I know you'll try to be respectful of each other, that you will try to continue to honor the other person. If somebody says, look, I'm having a lot of guests over, and if you could keep the noise down, even, you know, you try to accommodate your neighbors and try to be good neighbors. That's more important than anything we can do here today. So with that being said, I wish everyone good luck and good relations and good community. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on now to items 11 and 12, VAR-23-8A, VAR-23-8B, and that concerns an Anderson rear yard setback variance to Chapter 833, an Anderson maximum building coverage variance to Chapter 833, and this concerns 1.53 plus or minus acre parcel in Perry Township, Section 1, at 4646 East Heritage Woods Road, and it's currently zoned RE 2.5. And Mr. Brown, we get to hear from you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the request of this is, as you said, a rear yard setback and a maximum building coverage variance. Purpose of this petition was to add a proposed detached garage with a walkway and porch in addition to the house, as well as 2 porches to an already existing single-story, single-family residential dwelling, and an expansion of the existing driveway. Staff has concluded that the property is likely pre-existing non-conforming, and Chapter 833 requires structures built on RE 2.5 to meet a rear yard setback of 60 feet and a maximum lot coverage of 10%. However, despite the fact that RE 2.5 is, as the name might imply, has a minimum lot size of 2.5 acres, this lot has been judged to be exempt from needing a minimum lot size variance, as it is subject to Table 33-5, Section 6 in Chapter 833 of the zoning ordinance, which states, any substandard lot of record which was recorded prior to the effective date of the zoning ordinance shall be permitted to exist in its present dimensions. Such lots may have reduced side yard setback requirements as shown below. In RE district, 15 feet minimum each side, and in any RS district, 6 feet minimum to each side. Furthermore, Chapter 833 also states that detached garages, carports, and storage sheds may be no higher than 15 feet and shall be located no closer to the property line than 5 feet for side yard setbacks. Here is the current lot coverage, both current, proposed, and permitted. I would like to clarify that the current standards are as the property is now, meaning its current acreage, while the permitted is meant for a property that meets the 2.5 acres. As you can see, the rear yard setback as it stands currently is not met, as the permitted is 60 feet, and the petitioner plans on effectively doubling the lot coverage for this 0.53 acre lot. And here is a location map showing the location of the lot itself, as well as a slope map. And here is the site plan, as you can see from the dimensions right here, if you can see my mouse. It does not currently meet the 60 feet setback, even as it stands right now. Also, there will be a detached garage here, and replacing a 192 square foot store utility shed. And here are some pictures of the property. This is the front of the house, showing sort of where the front porch will be extended. This is an image of the utility shed as it stands, which I understand will be removed and replaced with the garage. And the image on the bottom is of the backyard of the lot, which will be expanded with a porch. Staff recommends approval with a condition of VAR 23-8A and VAR 23-8B due to the pre-existing non-conforming nature of the lot, with the following condition: that the petitioner applies for an after-the-fact building permit for the 192 square foot utility shed, as while it is not on a permanent foundation, it is over 120 square feet in size and thus would require a building permit.
Okay, do members of the BZA have questions for Mr. Brown?
No.
No. D, any questions for Mr. Brown?
No, ma'am, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, so with that being said, if Mr. Anderson or his representative, or Mrs. Anderson or her representative is here, would you, oh, I see that they are on Zoom. If you could unmute Mr. Anderson's mic. And Mr. Anderson, would you kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, and actually, this is Sarah Anderson.
Oh, thank you, Sarah.
So this is Mrs. Anderson.
So,
yes.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and please state your name and your county of residence.
I'm Sarah Anderson, and I reside in Monroe County.
Okay, thank you. Well, you have 15 minutes to plead your case with us.
Well, hopefully we won't take up too much of your time. As was described, we are asking for 2 variance allowances for a rear yard setback and maximum building coverage. We love our neighborhood, Inherited Woods, and want to expand our home to allow us to continue raising our family here. The proposed addition that we'd like to make to our single-level home will help us accommodate my mother, who has limited mobility due to muscular dystrophy. It will also maintain the aesthetic and style of the existing home and neighborhood. We will be required to replace our current septic if we proceed, and that will take up most of the front yard, which left us to look at expanding toward the rear of the lot. As was stated, a good portion of our existing home is closer to the rear of the lot than the setback even allows. And our lot is unique in that it's zoned for 2.5 acres, but is only about half an acre. We really appreciate your time and consideration for this request, and we hope that your decision will allow us to stay here and continue to make memories and contribute to the community in Monroe County. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anderson, for speaking tonight. And with that being said, are there members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? If you are here in this room, please come to the podium. If you are online on Zoom, please raise your virtual hand, or if you're calling in, please press *9 on the telephone. Are there members of the public who are in opposition to this petition? If so, please make yourself known. If there are members of the public in opposition to this petition, so we bring it back to the members of Board of Zoning Appeals for further discussion and/or a motion.
Well, it seems a sensible proposal under the circumstances, and I move that we grant variances 23-8A and 23-8B, Anderson rear yard setback variance to Chapter 833, and Anderson maximum building coverage variance to Chapter 833, concerning the real estate at 4646 East Heritage Woods Road.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and does that include the condition in the staff report regarding the after the fact?
Yes, and
Okay.
then I incorporate the staff report as my justification.
Okay, and D, is that a friendly amendment, okay?
It's accepted, yes.
Okay, all right, so it's been moved and seconded to approve BAR-23-8A and 8B, which is for a rear yard setback variance and a maximum building coverage variance to Chapter 833 with the condition that the petitioner applies for an after-the-fact building permit for the 192 square foot utility shed. A vote in favor is a vote to approve both variances. Skip Daly,
Yes.
Guy Loftman,
Yes.
D. Owens,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens.
Yes?
Okay, motion carries 4-0.
Okay, so we're moving on to item number 13, and I've just been notified by a board member that he may have to leave after this, and so we will no longer have a quorum.
Oh, it's in person, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay, let's just go.
We can just, okay,
Let's
let's
go,
try
let's
to
go,
move
let's go,
this
let's go,
along.
let's go.
With no impediment to justice. Okay, so item number 13, VAR-23-9, Whaley minimum lot size variance to Chapter 804 concerning 1 ± acre parcel in Bloomington Township on Bethel Lane. And Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the request for this, as you said, is a minimum lot size variance. The purpose of this is to add grading to the property in order to lessen the steep slope towards the rear of the property so that a single-family residence and a new septic system may be installed. Staff has concluded that the property is likely pre-existing non-conforming, and Chapter 804 requires lots in the zone conservation residential to meet a minimum lot size of 2.5 acres. As you can see, there is significant slope towards the rear of the property based on the map on the right, and that is the area that is intended to be graded for the new proposed house and septic. And here is a site plan that was submitted showing the location of the new house as well as the existing of the proposed septic right around here, if you can see my mouse. The purpose of this is so that the property will no longer require a 15% buildable area variance. Since the ordinance applies to structures and not grading activity outside of the eco area, the petitioner has decided to proceed with the minimum variance necessary, which they judge to be the minimum lot size. Staff requested that the petitioner apply for both a minimum lot size and a buildable area variance, but the petitioner has declined. A minimum lot size variance will still be required for an application of the grading permit. Previously, on a lot was a single-family residence measuring roughly an estimated 700 square feet. The petitioner did receive a demolition permit to remove the existing home, as shown in the site photos in the packets. We have received remonstrance about this petition from a neighbor. The person who sent the message said, "I have been reviewing the site plan." Quote, "I've been reviewing the site plan and I see that they have the desire to regrade the land along the fence line. I presently have a fence within about 4 inches of the property line. I am concerned that they would disturb the existing infrastructure if they were to dig along the line or regrade it. I also see that they are planning on putting a septic tank across the ravine to the south near the other side of the livestock fence. If they were to dig a deep pit right next to the property line, I'm concerned that it could cause some damage or cave in from my side of the property line. I have been working on this property for slightly over 6 years now, and it would be a real shame to put that work into jeopardy," unquote.
Okay.
So, staff, despite the remonstrance, staff recommends an approval of VAR-23-9 due to the pre-existing non-conforming nature of the lot.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Do members of the BZA have questions for Mr. Brown? Okay, Ms. Moss is coming up, and if you would kindly sign in. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you as well.
And please raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And state your name and your county of residence.
Chelsea Moss with Abram Moss Design Group, Monroe County.
Thank you.
I'm here representing David Whaley on this petition. So as outlined, we were recommended two variances, the 15% slope as well. Part of the reason we did not want to pursue that is that particular variance, as you are probably aware, is very restrictive. Basically, whatever footprint you indicate on the plan at the time for that 15% slope, that's what it's attached to. And so I've run into it before where somebody after the fact wants to tweak their footprint, it causes problems. The project owners are still working on the exact footprint configuration for the house, but they'd like to get started on the grading right away. And the fact of the matter is they're going to be grading that to a much more flat site. And right now, there's not enough buildable area without doing any grading to put a reasonable house back on it. In fact, the pre-existing septic and trailer that were on there were stair-stepped, and so technically there's even steep slopes between where this old septic was and where the trailer was and where the drive was. So you have a lot of slope configuration issues. I know the remonstrant, and I had not seen that letter prior to this, but grading near the property line, there's going to be some cutting proposed up near the road. There's currently the east side of the site sits pretty high above the road, so we'll be cutting that down, but the intent is to put a substantial retaining wall, and that wall won't be right on the property line. It's going to be set back. Those retaining walls require some setback from neighboring properties as well as any structures and stuff. So it is not going to be right on the wall. The remaining grading through the rest of the site, that's only going to be along the north side of that east property line. And then we will be kind of catching up to the existing grade along the rest of that. There is an existing swale in the site. We'll be reworking that. So the drainage will still be accommodated. We're just moving it so that we have room for a house, as well as putting in the new septic. Again, we're not trying to bypass anything with the 15% slope. We really just know that there's a lot of restrictions once we get a variance on that 15% slope, that with the current state of what they're working on that footprint, they're not ready to nail that down yet. But with spring coming and construction season starting up, they'd like to get the earthwork moving on the site so that it's ready. A lot of what will be coming in will be fill, and my client intends to have all of that fill compaction testing conducted on that, and then we will get an as-built survey done all before application for the building permit. So,
Okay. Does anybody here have questions for Ms. Moss?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. We'll hear from the public. Are there members of the public who are in favor of this petition? If so, please come to the podium, raise your virtual hand on Zoom, or press *9 on the telephone. Do you see anyone? I don't see anyone. Is there a member of the public who is in opposition to this petition? Please come to the podium. Yes, sir. Please sign in. Welcome.
Thanks.
And please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Thank
I do.
you. And please state your name and your county of residence.
Okay, my name is Ross Hunter, and I live in Monroe County.
Thank you. Well, you have 3 minutes
Okay.
to talk to us.
First off, I want to say I'm not in opposition to there being a home there. I'm not opposed to it at all. I just wanted to submit some documentation about the water runoff.
Okay.
I have some concerns related to that.
Okay.
Do you mind if I give you
Yeah,
guys some?
if you give it to us, please hold the clock until he gives us the documents he'd like us to see, and might maybe kindly give one to Ms. Moss as well.
Yes, I'll give one to her.
Yeah.
Should I give it to you?
Well, is there more than one copy? Okay, so give one to staff, one to me, and, yeah, and then one to me, and I think then, two to us, sorry, Ms. Moss.
Oh, well, I can show her.
Okay, then we'll just share this. Okay. Okay, just give us a minute here before the
Okay, so I understand.
just give me 1 minute, okay? So
Okay.
he's worried about the rain and the water flow after the rain.
Yes, there's some pictures or some drawings that I made in
Yes,
there.
I see that. I see that, and Mr. Brown has them as well, and so does Ms. Nestor Jelen. And so he has questions, and I would like to share this with my colleagues, so give us a minute since we just received it.
Okay.
And I can hand that to, oh, okay.
Sorry, this is my first time at one
That's
of these,
okay, that's okay. Hopefully you won't have to do this every first Wednesday of the month, like we do.
It's a lot longer than I thought. There's a lot of petitions.
Yeah, there's a lot, and they're controversial tonight, so, yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah, we're doing our best. We're trying to do our best. So, Mr. Brown, while we're looking through all of this, do you have anything that you see that you'd like to add that concerns you or you think is resolved?
Potentially.
Yes.
There is mention of, as you might be able to see, the groundwater flow.
Yes.
It does look like there is note of the swale along the proposed site plan, as well as a base, as what I assume to be a drainage basin.
Yes. So is that going to be improved by the home, or is it going to be denigrated by the home?
Well, this petition is for the minimum lot size
Yes.
variance. And
Yes.
if they were able to be granted the minimum lot size variance, then we would need to see a grading plan. So right
Yes.
now, if you look at the existing contours, the neighbor that's, the parcel in question is lower elevation than the parcel to the east, which is the remonstrator's property. But we haven't received a grading plan, so it's,
So the approval could be subject to a grading plan?
yeah, we
approval?
will be requesting a grading permit, which will be reviewed by our MS4 coordinator to make sure that, we try to make sure there's no
So,
detrimental flooding of other neighbors.
so if I understand this correctly, the concerns that are, and I'm not pushing these concerns off, but these concerns are not specific to the variance in front of us.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm taking what you proposed seriously. It doesn't seem like it applies to
The minimum lot size is necessary regardless of what they do to the property, but their intent is to grade it, which we cannot require them to get a buildable area variance and force the home in a different location because this is not in the environmental constraint overlay. So the minimum lot size variance is the minimum variance needed to do further development on this lot. So their concerns are of the next steps after this variance.
Okay. Would there be additional hearings for that?
Well, they have to get approved through this step, correct?
Yeah.
So we don't know at this point.
So basically, this is step one. And
Okay.
then we have like these professional staff who would make the approval subject to them meeting kind of standards for grading and anything that they wanted to do. But that being said, you have 3 minutes to talk to us about.
Let me ask one more
Yes,
question.
one last question.
If I may.
Yes.
If, would the neighboring property owner
Microphone.
would the neighboring property owner be told that that the grading permit was being sought? Or could they get their 2 cents in on that? And could they see it and get their response in?
So grading permit and building permits are all staff level approval, which means they're not publicly noticed or we don't host hearings on those.
No, but Ms. Moss could agree to tell the neighbor. I mean, she could agree, yeah, to work with the neighbor.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, so if you
Yeah,
want
so-
to
Yeah,
hear the
I can do that.
petitioner or the remonstrator first and then, or however you want to.
Let's hear the remonstrance.
Yeah, we'd like to hear the 3 minutes,
Now
what you
here's-
have to say, and then we'll work
Okay.
on all the other stuff.
So it was all about the regrading, that's what I was asking about.
Yeah.
And it's just that I understand the petitioner desires to regrade the property and change the elevation of the land. And I have a concern that it could affect water drainage from my property and the other adjoining properties and create a kind of like a swamp-like condition on the side of my property if it were to stop the water from taking its normal course that
I
it
see.
usually does.
Okay.
So, and then I've provided the drawings which depict the flow of the water from my property onto the petitioner's property. And then I also included an outline of the concerns in the paperwork, and that's all I have to say about it.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. And so now we'll hear from Ms. Moss, and she can answer those questions probably more professionally than we could because she's an engineer. Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you. So, Ms. Moss, if you would be so kind as to provide a 5-minute rebuttal.
Yes, and all of these are fantastic questions, and these will all be addressed in our grading permit as well as the final site plan for the home. These are all concerns that are actually the reason my client hired me for this. He wanted to make sure that in rerouting the natural drainage flow that was adequately covered. And so what the MS4 is going to look for in my design calculations and site plan is that we do not back water up onto the neighboring property any more than it currently does. In this case, we're actually going to exceed that a little bit because it's going to be so close to the house. So even more so, like we don't want to get it backed up to the neighbor, but we also don't want to get water in the new house. So we are going to be rerouting that between those two lines in a swale that is then collected with a underground pipe, an inlet with an underground pipe. If that gets clogged, which is something that is asked in there is an overflow. Well, basically land overflow similar to what it did, but it'll be spread out more and then enter the same swale that it does on the downhill side of the retaining wall that'll be holding up the site. So these are all questions that are going to be addressed in that grading plan and also in the final site plan for the home.
And if this were approved, would you work with Mr. Hunter? Would you talk to him and tell him?
Yeah, we can definitely make sure you're aware of what's planned and how we're addressing that. I know David doesn't want to blindside anybody, so but that is he wants to be a good neighbor and everything, and again, that is why he hired me for this, so that things were properly designed so they're not backing up on to your property.
So will you provide him with when you're ready to propose the drainage plan, will you to the planning department, will you give him a copy of that before you present it?
I believe I can, yes.
That would be great. So is that
great.
acceptable
Thank
to you, Mr. Hunter? Is that? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not getting any of that on the record, by the way.
That's okay. We will make our motion subject to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know one of these questions was if we're raising above the neighboring properties, and we aren't. So the final grade of this property, definitely along those edges, is going to still be lower than the neighboring properties. We're not putting a big high hill in the middle. It's just filling it to a point that we can build on it, and it's reasonable for a cross space or slab-based house.
Okay, well, that's great. With that being said, are there further questions or a motion?
I do have one more question for Ms. Moss.
You do?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Daly. Sorry, I don't mean to be rushing everybody. I know you want to
Well,
leave, and I see all the
we have to do our due diligence. And there was concern, you said you heard it for the first time tonight. There was a quotation by Mr. Brown in remonstrance, and there was a neighbor, I don't believe it was this gentleman, that had a problem with the grading because of the fence.
Yes, it's the same.
That's the same, okay.
Yes, yeah, yes.
Okay. I was not clear that that was the same situation. If that's settled, then fantastic.
Come to the microphone and, yes.
I don't need to know. You give me the thumbs up that you're satisfied that was your quote? Okay, okay, we're good.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
Okay, so if there's a motion for approval with, subject to grading permit and working with the neighbor and notifying the neighbor of the grading plan, if there's a motion like that, I'd be really happy.
Margaret, did we check for supporters and remonstrators for this case? We did?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And he was the remonstrator, and we
Yes.
had the rebuttal.
Okay.
I know, it's getting late, sorry.
I move we approve variance 23-9, Whaley minimum lot size variance to chapter 804, located at 3000 East Bethel Lane, and incorporate the reasons set forth in the staff in their recommendation of approval.
And do you make it subject to the grading permit and working with the neighbor?
Subject to the grading permit and the neighbor being notified of the grading permit before it is filed, so he has a chance to look at it.
Okay, great. Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve VAR-23-9, which is the Whaley minimum lot size variance to Chapter 804. And there were two conditions added to this variance request. One is that the petitioner seek a grading permit. And the second was that the petitioner share the grading permit application materials prior to filing that with staff. Is that correct?
Share it with the neighbor.
Share it with the neighbor
Mr.
prior to
Mr.
filing
Hutter.
with staff. Okay. A vote in favor is a vote to approve with those conditions. Skip Daly,
Yes.
Guy Loftman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
yes.
Okay, motion is approved 4-0.
And thank you for your patience tonight and also for coming out and expressing your concerns in this manner. Thank you. Now, for the big winners of the Patience Prize, we're coming to the last petition, which is item number 14, VAR-22-34. And item number 15, do we hear these together or separate? And item number 15, VAR-22-36, and this is an amended Arnold General Contractor use variance for Lot A to Chapter 802 at 7850 North Wayport Road, and Arnold General Contractor use variance Lot B to Chapter 802 at 7854 North Wayport Road. And Mr. Myers, if you would be so kind as to review this with us.
Thank you. So this is VAR 22-34 and VAR 22-36. There are two petitions because there are technically two separate lots of record for the subject property, And we have heard this in the past. We did hear this petition at the August 31st, 2022 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, where it received a decision of denial by a vote of 3-0. But according to Chapter 812, the petitioner is able to submit an amended petition, and that is what's happening tonight. And there's additional information the petitioner has provided that's all been included in the packet. And I will go over some things now for this petition. So the purpose of the use variance request is to add the general contractor use to a property that's zoned agricultural rural reserve. Property is located at 7850 North Wayport Road. It is the former Wormsway property. 7850 North Wayport Road is on 6.65 acres for the Lot A and 6.21 acres for Lot B. The petitioner, Mr. John Arnold, desires to relocate his general contractor business currently located at 3440 South Leonard Springs Road to the subject property. Again, this is an amended request from their initial variance application heard and denied on August 31st, 2022 by the Board of Zoning Appeals. Chapter 812-3 is the approval procedure that allows for the petitioner to submit an amended application. I have the definition for general contractor included here. Normally, a general contractor in the rural zone of agricultural rural reserve would be a conditional use. However, that specific type of general contractor has a qualifier that's titled general contractor rural. And in order to have the opportunity to establish that type of use on a property, the individual seeking that use must live on the property. So for this specific case, since it's just going to be a commercial business in a commercial building, the use variance process is required for the standard general contractor use. If the use variance is approved, the petitioner will be required to file a commercial change of use site plan and comply with current site plan requirements prior to occupying the building and utilizing the property. Part of the implementation process includes upgrading the landscaping requirements to current standards and a reassessment of parking and bioretention. The petitioner has said that there are no plans to expand the building footprint or parking lots or driveways at this time. So here's the language from Chapter 812-3 that talks about the amended variance process. And here I have the definitions of general contractor from Chapter 802, as well as the condition that it must meet, being that the Plan Commission may attach additional conditions to its approval in order to prevent injurious or obnoxious dust, fumes, gases, noises, odors, refuse matter, smoke, vibrations, water carried waste, or other objectionable conditions, and to protect and preserve the character of the surrounding neighborhood. So here's the summary of the recent cases for this petition. It first recently heard a 2019 variance, a use variance to add metal fabrication, which was approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals by a vote of 3-2 on June 5th, 2019. A commercial site plan was never filed for this particular use by the property owner. Then in 2021, REZ 21-3, a rezone request from agricultural rural reserve to light industrial came through. The Plan Commission gave a positive recommendation of 7-0 on October 5th, 2021. However, that petition was denied by the County Commissioners by a vote of 3-0 on October 27th, 2021. Then in 2022, as I stated before, this petition to add a general contractor use through the use variance process came through this Board of Zoning Appeals under VAR-22-34 and 36, which was ultimately denied by the BZA with a vote of 3-0 at the August 31st, 2022 meeting. So here we have the location map, the lower old Wormsway property. It's 2 lots. Here's the slope map. There's no karst, visible karst or FEMA floodplain, and it's not located in an eco area. So here's a detailed slope map that I added for the purposes of this petition specifically, because I know that there was a lot of conversation about proximity from the previous petition that was heard in August, as well as some concern from neighbors about how close they are to the property under consideration tonight. So everywhere in the yellow of this buffer ring is within 500 feet of the petition site. And then everywhere in the red is within 1,000 feet, and in the blue is within 1,500 feet. So you can kind of see the distances that we're looking at here with regard to surrounding properties. And we can come back to this if we want to reference it. I also added a new exhibit that kind of details more measurements for the proposed structures, or the existing structure that will be utilized under the proposed use for general contractor. These colored flags here are representing vantage points where some staff photos have been taken from, and I will go through those now. So this is on the south side of the property, and this is just looking out through the property towards its property boundaries, and you can kind of see what we're looking at here on the ground of the petition site. Again, the colored flags coordinate with the location map that I showed previously. I'm just going to keep going through some photos here. Okay, so then we have additional site photos here. These were presented in the August meeting, so it also is beneficial at this time because it provides a difference in seasons for what the site looks like. So I'm going to scroll through some of these site photos to show again what the site looks like, as well as some of those pictures of the property line with the full foliage of trees in the late summer. Okay, so these two items you see on the screen are from the original petition. They are the original consent form as well as the original letter to the Board of Zoning Appeals. This is all included in your packet. And here we have the amended letter to the Board of Zoning Appeals submitted by Mr. John Arnold. This is also included in your packet. We can come back to this if we have questions about it. I imagine the petitioner has a prepared statement as well regarding this use variance request. Now these next two images here, these are the letters to the Board of Zoning Appeals from the owner of the property, Mr. Height, and he will also likely have a prepared statement as well. Again, these are all included in the packet. Okay, so just a few more exhibits here. These are some exhibits submitted by the petitioner. These were in the original petition detailing which buildings they will be referring to for their proposed business. And then some additional images here that kind of are showing where they suspect to put various aspects of their existing business onto the new site. Okay, so this is actually a new exhibit that was submitted as part of the amended application, and this is also included in your packet. Just some details about where the petitioner intends to park some of their vehicles on the site if they are approved and are able to use the site for their intended use as a general contractor. Here is the plat for the old Wormsway Administrative Type A subdivision. And here we have the use table for the Agricultural Rural Reserve Zoning District. If we have any questions about that, we can come back to this. We do have letters of support. The petitioner did submit as part of their amended application various letters that are attesting to their quality as a neighbor. So these letters were submitted as part of the amended application and are, like I said, detailing various aspects of Mr. Arnold's business as being a neighbor on South Leonard Springs Road. So these are all included in your packet, so I will click through these rather quickly. There were also letters of opposition. So all of these letters that you're about to see were submitted after the packet's publishing, so I will go through them slowly. They were submitted by various neighbors within the subdivision that is next to the property to the, would be the east. I think Windsor Private is the name of it. So here are some of those letters here.
The current, the variance proposed property, not his Leonard Springs property?
Correct.
Thank you.
These are letters of opposition for the proposed property at the Worms Way location. And then here we have a few other short ones that were submitted after the publication of the packet. Okay, so that brings me to staff's recommendation for variance 22-34 and 22-36. Staff recommends denial of the use variance to add general contractor to Lot A under 22-34 and denial of the use variance to add general contractor to Lot B under variance 22-36. The rationale behind this recommendation is that there is no substantial evidence that the property cannot be utilized under one of the permitted uses listed in the Ag RR zoning district and therefore does not meet criteria 812-5D. Again, this is a use variance, so we have this special criteria that we evaluate these petitions over. And I'll take any questions.
Okay, do members of the BZA have questions for Mr. Myers? No?
No.
D? No.
The letter by Mr. Brown talked about a retention pond. We haven't had our MS4 coordinator yet review this because it's not the appropriate time. Is that correct?
That's correct. Typically, that sort of review comes through the site plan review process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Owens. Okay, with that being said, is if the petitioner's representative is here and would like to address the Board of Zoning Appeals about this case, okay, please come to the podium and sign in, and then I'll swear you in. And you'll, once you begin, you'll have 15 minutes. Are you Mr. Arnold?
I am.
Yeah, I think the last time you were online.
I'm sorry?
The last time you attended online.
Yes.
So please sign in and then we'll swear you in.
Thank you.
And would you kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And please state your name and the county in which you reside.
My name is John Arnold, and I reside in Monroe County.
Yes.
Me and my wife currently own Arnold Asphalt. Drew, thanks for a wonderful presentation. That was nice.
Would you kindly adjust this microphone down? Because,
Yeah, sure.
thanks.
I'm going to kind of keep it short. I'm glad that you gave us the consideration to hear the amended petition. Thank you.
Above all, I just want to make it clear, based on the last time that this petition had went through, that there was a lot of fear, hysteria about sealer and asphalt all over the place. And I want to make it explicitly clear that we don't manufacture asphalt sealers. We don't manufacture asphalt. We go to a job, we come back, and that's the end of it. As for coal tar, which was a subject that was raised in the beginning, you know, just to put things into perspective, this year, my supplier had come down, and they do that every year and want to talk about prices and things of that nature. And the first question I had to him, because last year we could not buy coal tar sealer, it's just not available. It's basically over. You can't buy it. And that was my first question, was like, you know, what's the availability of coal tar this year? And he said, well, we want to talk about that. So that put into motion, our whole industry is changing. So everything's went environmentally friendly, everything. So we're contractors that go to a job, we come back, and that's pretty much it. And we support employees and their families. And you've seen the letters from my neighbors. You know, I got one of them here, the one that lives directly behind me. And they could tell their experiences living next to me and Sarah. But aside from all that, I'd like to preserve what time I have left here for the board members, any questions, or the general public at this time.
Okay, do members of the Board of Zoning Appeals have questions for Mr. Arnold?
No.
There will be a rebuttal period after all
Understood.
of that.
Yeah.
So I think we're still just, you know, we're just still listening and thinking.
Sure,
and also
absolutely.
we're grateful to you as an employer and as a
Thank
good neighbor and a good community member.
Yeah.
And we're grateful to you for that. But we will be hearing.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Owens.
I'm sorry, I did have a question.
Oh, great.
It seems to me like, sir, what your proposed uses are for the property, that it sounds kind of like a glorified parking lot. Isn't that kind of expensive for you?
You know, there's an old adage that runs in my family, and we've always believed that, you know, it's all in what you want, you know, and if you keep a fish small to its tank, it's going to grow that large. And so what I'm trying to do is provide a place where we can grow, house our equipment, especially in the wintertime, because, you know, an asphalt paver is like $240,000. You know, you leave them outside and they freeze. It's an incredible expense. Same thing, I've got 4 pavers. And so rollers and all that stuff, that building would house my equipment and keep it warm during the winter. So that, to answer your question, to me, it's, you know, it's what I want, and it suits me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold.
Thank you.
Mr. Daly has a question
Mr.
for you.
Arnold?
Yes.
Yes.
If you will, you're listed as a general contractor here in this proposal. Can you give me the 20 or less on what your responsibilities are currently in terms of what your company does?
Sure. We run advertisements through local media, different things, and then people will call us looking for an estimate. So
people call you for
an estimate.
An estimate, doing what type of work? I'm sorry.
It's either preventative maintenance or it's asphalt installations or concrete related for their properties, whether it's commercial or residential. So we go out to the property and then we assess it, and then we get back in communications with them via email or phone. And then if they sign up, then they schedule an appointment to be serviced. That's what we do. And so then we leave and go service them.
Material storage is not
really,
something that
because
happens
no.
at the site.
No.
So all material gets delivered directly to the site where
right.
you're working.
The only time that that's not true is seal coat in general, and that's why I started out the theme about coal tar, because that was the general consensus, and the big complaint was that people were afraid that it would poison their water tables and all these different things. The reality is our industry is being pushed towards green, and we can't stop it. And even though I don't like it, I still have to house some form of sealer inside of the building in a tank.
What about things like, okay, so you said concrete and asphalt or some of the jobs that you do. What about things like washout and clean out? Where do
what?
Clean out and wash out of the materials? And you said you have $200,000 vehicles, or you aspire to those.
That's
right. Those have to be maintained
on the job.
They have to be cleaned
every day.
every single
day,
day
and
and
you do it.
dried thoroughly.
Yes.
So all of the runoff is not
No.
scheduled to be at that
No,
site.
your equipment wakes up the way you put them to bed. And so when you're at a job and you're done with that job, you clean the pavers out, the dump trucks, so
Okay.
forth.
Now, you also told Board Member Owens that you were looking to grow. You want a bigger aquarium so you can
Yeah.
you can breed a bigger fish, which is fantastic, and I
Sure.
applaud that.
Thank you.
Your aspirations are to move into other realms of contracting?
No.
No,
I'm going to
okay.
keep my line extensions the same. My primary line extensions are asphalt and seal coating, that's it.
Right. Thanks for your time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. So are there members of the public who are here who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Okay, please come one at a time to the podium. There are two here to sign in, and then I'll swear you in. Hi, welcome. Thanks for sticking it out tonight. And
I'm Sarah Arnold.
would you kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
And you live in Monroe County?
Yes, I do.
Yes. So you have 3 minutes to talk to us about this.
I wasn't going to come up here, but I'm not good at speeches, but I'm just going to hold my husband. Husband is John Arnold. I'm the better half. Sorry, John. He's told all the truth. We don't manufacture anything. Everything's cleaned out at the job site. If it's leftover asphalt, we take it to the EMB clean out there. Everything's cleaned up at the job site, so nothing's going to be cleaned up at the buildings. We're just going to do, asphalt and seal coating, that's it.
Okay.
And, I feel like that we provide a lot of jobs for the community. We do good for the community. We do resident, we do, a lot of commercial too. So I feel like, as a resident that's been here all of our lives, we do a lot for this community. And I feel like that we need the building just to, help us out, protect our investment that we've done over the years. And that's basically what I all have to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Arnold. Okay. And sir, you wanted to come and speak as well in favor of this petition? Okay. Now, is there anybody on Zoom or online, or anybody else in this room who would like to speak in favor of this petition on the phone, Zoom, or here? Okay. Seeing none, I'd like to turn to those who are opposed to the petition. And if you
Sorry,
are...
one just raised their
one
hand.
person just, okay.
Yeah.
15 attendees. I don't see them. I'm
It was
sorry.
Martin Height.
Okay, so is he unmuted? Or,
Yes.
okay. Sir, would you kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And could you state your name and the county in which you reside?
My name is Martin Height. I live in Monroe County.
Okay.
I'm the property owner.
Okay, great. And you have 3 minutes to tell us why you support this petition.
All right. Well, thanks to the staff for getting us on this meeting again for our amended petitions in a short time frame. 90% of all problems between human beings can be solved by communication. And I just want to make that effort to communicate better tonight, because there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of fear. And John said it, I'll say it again. He's not an asphalt plant. He never has asphalt or coal tar on site. And so that's seemed to be one of the biggest fears of environmental pollution or odors or something like that. His current neighbor letters speak for themselves. They've been next to him for 10 or 15 years. They don't report any of the problems or the fears that were spoken at the 831 meeting. And then I hope the board finds all of the 5 conditions that have been met, but I especially want to go on the record D as in dog. 7 years the property's been listed. 5.5 years it's been vacant. No offer has been made by a permitted use on the ag chart zone by anybody. No, 90% of the permitted uses for this property are not financially viable. There'll never be a fruit stand. There'll never be a Christmas tree farm. A variance is the only option. It's just not financially viable. Government entities are on there, and so is utility companies. But I've not had an offer in 7 years of anybody that's listed on that ag chart. As you said before, Jordan Sheet Metals received a variance. They're allowed in the light industrial zone, but they received a variance. But I think if anything, a year down the road, if this is approved, that I think the neighbors' fears will melt away. Arnold Asphalt is a much lower impact business than Worms Way was. We had 30 semi-trucks a day in and out of there. We had retail customers. We had 70, 80 employees. Much lower impact than Worms Way was. And I just think that in time, that all those fears would melt away, and that they're definitely not going to see environmental. They're not going to hear noise. I mean, I-69 is right there. John starting up a truck in the morning is not going to interfere with your peace and quiet. When Worms Way was there, we had all the wildlife in the world running through there: deer, squirrel, rabbit, raccoons. It was not a wasteland for wildlife or anything like that. So I just think, I hope cooler heads prevail tonight, and that the board takes it seriously. I believe we met all 5 conditions, and I hope the board agrees with me.
Okay.
Anyway, I'd like some time to rebut also, or please answer any questions from the board.
Thank you, Mr. Height. Okay, are there other members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the members of the public who are in opposition to this petition. Let's start in this room. If you would kindly come up to the podium and sign in.
I can put another sign-in sheet out if that would help.
Oh, is it, yeah.
Put it in the back.
Oh, that would be good. You can start to circulate that. Yeah, great. So we're asking that you pre-sign in if you intend to speak, so that we don't have to wait as this evening wears on. So the sheet of paper is behind you, and we'll swear you in one by one, but at least your signature will be obtained. So, sir, would you kindly raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And kindly state your name and the county where you reside.
My name's Randy Barnes. I'm the Homeowners Association President for Windsor Private.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes, and you have 3 minutes.
I feel sorry for the Arnolds. I feel sorry for the owner of the property. Nobody in our neighborhood, believe me, is anti-business. This is a high-scale neighborhood. We like business. We don't want a paving company in our backyard. That's it. If you look at the recommendations that were written by his neighbors, 4 of them were the same address, and it's a real estate company, and the other one wasn't next door. And I would think the neighbors next door would want to get rid of them too. Why are they moving? So he needs an industrial location. He doesn't need residential, he doesn't need agriculture, and the owner of the property doesn't even list the property for sale as agriculture. It's listed as industrial, even though it's not zoned that way. That's my point.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. So if the next person who's already signed in would come up to the podium, and sir, if you would kindly raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I was changing glasses.
That's okay. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing
Yes.
but the truth? And please state your name and the county in which you reside.
I'm Mike Hostetler, and we reside in the Windsor Private.
Thank you, Mr.
Association.
Hostetler. So you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak. A couple real quick points. As an Indiana attorney, I'm not exactly sure why this is being even considered. My reading of the regulations doesn't allow a contractor unless it's related to agricultural or rural reserve activities. Asphalt paving is not related to either one of those activities. So beyond that, I don't understand what's changed between August and now. We have some more letters of support for Mr. Arnold from people who live next to him now, but I think some of those letters are problematic, frankly. Out of the 5 letters, 4 are from the same address. People that apparently don't live there, based on my observations of the property, they don't live there. So I don't know how they've made any of these determinations that there's no problem. But, excuse me. But I also want to talk about it from there's been talk about misinformation. I can tell you that at the last hearing, no one said he manufactured asphalt. I was the general counsel and chief risk officer for the largest asphalt contractor in the state of Indiana, and one of the largest asphalt producers in the state of in the United States. I can assure you that I know the difference between an asphalt plant and what Mr. Arnold will be doing. Mr. Arnold's operations were very similar to our operations that we had at 35 offices around the state of Indiana in 15 counties. And in none of those areas where we ever begin to have the operations he's going to have in a building like this. I mean, it's not, when you have products such as coal tar. Now, I understand Mr. Arnold says we're not going to use it anymore. His website today says right in his website, in red, I only use coal tar pitch. And it's not been dislawed, it's not been made unlawful. They're looking at restrictions throughout the state, throughout the country, but it's not been made illegal yet, nowhere in the state, in this state. So I think there's something confusing to me about, are we going to use coal tar, or are we not going to use coal tar? If coal tar is a terrible toxin, it's just terrible. And then I also look at, he's going to have equipment there, and I don't exactly understand how he washes off his equipment at the site. Because if that's the case, then I think IDEM would like to know about that. Because if you're washing off your equipment at somebody's yard, you're washing this material off into the ground. And it's not just coal tar. There are other asphalt emulsifications that are not good for the environment, not good for people, especially kids. So I mean, I just don't understand his operation. If you're going to wash it at the Wormsway property, you need dikes, you need fire prevention. There's no enhanced fire protection in that building. If this thing burnt, you're going to have an East Palestine situation here, where all these chemicals are going to go up in flames, and there's just nothing there to stop it. So it looks like I'm out of time.
Okay,
so.
Mr. Hostetler, thank you so
Thank you.
much. If the next person would come up, I'm sorry that it's a long night. Sir, if you would raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And kindly state your name and your county of residence.
Andrew Long, I live in Monroe County.
Thank you, Mr. Long.
Okay, I've got some notes here. So I'm a resident of the neighbourhood. I feel like we're constantly fighting this issue. Our neighbourhood residents have formally opposed these requests before, and each time Monroe County officials have agreed with the residents and denied these requests. I feel that Monroe County officials now need to stop these constant requests to rezone or get variances. It's getting ridiculous. The amended request is restating the same points as before that were already denied. The current property owners have tried variances and spot rezones before, but denied each time because they were inappropriate for the area. The current property owners consistently advertise the 2 parcels for sale as an industrial zone property, which is a lie. It's not industrial zoned, it's rural, it's agricultural. So this is dishonest right there, and what they're saying, and they're doing anything to offload their property is what they're doing. They're not even attempting to advertise this as an agricultural property. If they listed it as agricultural with a realistic value, then a sale might happen. They are claiming the residents are overly emotional. It's not true. We're just looking at the facts. They claim economic hardship, but they're listing the property as industrial with a high price tag to make this claim. So the owner's decision to sell their property is their own choice, and they have to live with that decision and not put their hardship on adjacent neighbourhoods. It's time for them to be honest about the zoning and accept that it's an industrial zone property. Now, as far as Mr. Arnold goes, I have a photo of his current location. Can I give this to you to look at?
Yes, you can give that to us.
Okay.
Yes, we'll just pass it around. You can do it afterwards if you wish.
Okay, yes, I'll do that, yep. Arnold's an asphalt company, and they state their intentions to sell a regulated product, asphalt sealant with coal tar. It's on their website. Coal tar has been banned by most states due to adverse effects on the environment. Arnold states in their letters they're only storing non-toxic sealant, but they advertise on their website that the sealant made with coal tar is better, and that's what they use. This means they will store and use coal tar-based sealant with potential for spillage. This photo shows what his current facility looks like, and I'll pass that around. They're going to have smelly and loud equipment. They're going to fill our neighbourhood area with smell and fumes. The chemicals they use may contaminate groundwater if they get washed into the groundwater. We've got a pond nearby that animals drink from. And so Wayport Road is fairly quiet. There are farmers and cyclists using it, and families. It's not designed for high volume traffic. And so having asphalt trucks speeding along there, is really going to pose a safety risk for the residents. We do have some noise from 69, and I admit that, but that doesn't mean it's okay to add more noise. It just because it's not really an excuse from the owner. So the Monroe County Code states that any variance to the land must conform to agricultural or closely related industries. Asphalt is not related to that. This is a residential, agricultural and rural area, not industrial. Arnold needs to go elsewhere, and the property owners need to sell this as agricultural and not industrial. Variances, rezoning and spot zoning to industrial for this company or any other company is inappropriate, and I'm requesting a unanimous decision to deny this request.
Thank you so much, sir, and if you would just bring that up
Yes.
here, we'll pass it around, and if the next person would kindly come up, and please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name and the county?
I'm David Gent. We live in the Windsor Private, right next to the property. In fact, our house is within that first band that the staff had put up in their diagram. It's actually well within that. And the back of our property and the pond that we use for all sorts of activity are directly in that band as well. So, this is I think the fourth time we've been here to talk about rezoning the property. And I wish that there was an agricultural purpose for that. When Wormsway is open, I'll go over all the time and buy products and things from them, and hated when it closed. But the problem that the owner has can't be my problem. The fact that he built this building for a specific purpose under a specific zoning, and now wants to change that, I don't think that should be my or my friend's problem in the neighborhood. But it continues to come back over and over. So I hope that you agree with the staff that this request should be denied yet again.
Thank you so much, sir. And if the next person would kindly come up, if you've already signed in. Yes? And please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name and your county of residence.
My name is Todd Schnatzmeyer. I live in the Windsor Private Edition in Monroe County.
Okay, thank you. And you have 3 minutes.
Okay. I think most of my points have already been made by my neighbors who've stood at the podium already. One of the questions I ask myself is, why are we back here again? We already broached this issue. We've gone through the arguments, and I don't know what's changed other than some exhibits that I think have been somewhat discounted. One of the exhibits that comes to mind as I look through this that really kind of strikes me is that one of the mentions is the metal fab was granted a conditional use variance. There have been other conditional use variances that have been seen before this BZA. Well, conditional use variances, if I'm correct in my knowledge of them, are specific to the use, specific to the company, and specific to the culture of that company. So to take that a step and say, oh, well, they did it here, so they should do it here, to me, it's irrelevant. So the argument should just go out the window in my mind immediately. When we talk about facts in the exhibit he presented, he says we do not store, and then on another part, at a letter to the BZA, says that they do store coal tar sealant in a storage container in a building. The U.S. Geological Survey did 2 studies They published them in the Journals of Environmental Science and Technology and Science of the Total Environment, where they stated that runoff from pavement with coal tar-based sealant is toxic to aquatic life, damages DNA, and impairs DNA repair. So if the USGS is not an authority in this, then I'm not sure who is. So I hope that you all take this to heart. We have kids in this neighborhood, and we have animals, and we enjoy life that we like to maintain. Once the toothpaste has left the tube, it's hard to put it back in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chasmeyer. Okay, the next person, please. Thank you so much for coming back. And please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. And your name? And
Lorne Albin, and I'm a member of Monroe County and live in Windsor private.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Albin. If you would kindly state your case in 3 minutes.
Thank you. Be happy to. So I live right there in the red zone. Me and my wife. She's watching Zoom. Hi, honey. There are 3 young kids that live in yellow zone. 300 kids that live there. 2 other kids that live there. We have kids throughout the family. The neighborhood is really going through its second renaissance. A lot of us older folks, no offense, are going to be moving. Families are going to be looking to move into that neighborhood. When my wife and I were looking, I'm a lifetime long resident of Bloomington, born and raised. When we were looking, we knew that Worms Way was there. We knew that Oliver Winery was there. They were both pluses. I can tell you today, if there was an asphalt company that was in front of and where I look out my front yard, and during the winter, you can see that, it simply we wouldn't move there and probably would consider leaving. So from the standpoint of just the neighborhood itself and its proximity to, it's just not a good fit. Question that I have that Mr. Schilling or Mr. Arnold can address, the last time that we were here, and I think that, I don't know whether it's stated there or stated outside of that, it seems like he was moving his business because of building violations that the county had imposed on him, and maybe he can address that. I don't know if that still exists or whether he's still under those parameters, i.e. one of the reasons why he's moving. But if you look at his photo, it's not a pleasant sight, maybe not a pleasant business. So one of the things I wanted to address is Mr. Height's concern that the building, that if agricultural use. So, and part of this is internet, so I apologize if it's not correct, but in 1985, he started Worms Way. They moved the business there, and for over 20 years, he was collecting rent, and it was a phenomenal place to locate, and he bought the property from Pine Cone Slope Stables. So for 20 years, it was a phenomenal place for an agricultural business. Now that they sold the business, he sold it to an ESOP, and then in 2016, it was sold to a private equity firm out of Florida. Now that it's no longer viable for him, it's, somehow agricultural doesn't fit anybody's need anymore. So I just, find that a little perplexing to understand how it can be viable in Bloomington for 20 years and now all of a sudden it's not. So with that, I hope that you will again deny this petition, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Albin. Is there anyone else? Thank you, ma'am. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, you remember me from last time.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Irene Miksic.
Do you swear to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
And your name?
Irene Miksic.
And your county of residence?
I'm sorry?
Where you live?
I live in Windsor Private.
Okay.
I've lived there for 28 years.
Yes.
I'll make this very short because my neighbors have provided all the information that I would.
Okay.
I'm in opposition. The only other 2 things I want to say is, I mentioned this last time, we live on karst, because most of us have, well, the lake doesn't hold water. That's one thing. It's very close to Building C, where Mr. Arnold is suggesting that he's going to park his trucks. And the other thing is runoff from the trucks. I would be very surprised if there wasn't any kind of byproduct of the asphalt that didn't get into the rainwater and into the lake or the pond that's there. It's a pond now. It doesn't hold water because of the karst. So again, I just hope you support the opposition to the variance.
Thank you so much for your patience tonight. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak in opposition to this before we move to the Zoom? I think we see a hand raised on Zoom. Julie Booz has her hand raised. And if you would kindly unmute yourself, and if you raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, Ms. Booz?
Yes, I do.
And please state your name and your county of residence.
It's Julia Booz, and I live in Monroe County. I'm a Windsor private homeowner.
Yes.
I lived here for 23 years.
Okay, you have,
yes. I'm sorry?
You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, one of the issues that I would like to address is Mr. Hyde's, his number D, his restrictive zoning ordinance for hardship. I'm a local realtor, and as it's been stated before, he consistently advertises the property as an industrial property, both buildings B and C, which it is not. And he continues to do that. The last time when we met, that was brought up. I looked at it today at 3 o'clock. It still states industrial. He has also priced it that way, which we know price sells. And he needs to understand that he needs to market the property for what it is. And then he would find someone to be there. I showed that property 2 different times. Both of my buyers wanted both buildings. They also would have fit the current zoning, but price was prohibited for what he's asking for it. Yes, it is not sold for 8 years. Well, there's a reason for that. And price has got a lot to do with it. The building's been maintained. He's done a wonderful job with that. Can't say that he hasn't. But he's marketing for something that it is not. So the buyers that he's getting are people who are looking for industrial. And then they come and they find out, well, in order to do that, we have to rezone it. So here we come back to you again over and over and over, trying to accommodate him to capitalize on a property that is zone agged that he's trying to sell as industrial. And this will continue to happen. There'll be another buyer come, and we'll be right back here talking to you again as someone is wanting to rezone it, because the way he's advertising it, he's never going to get an ag person to come and do this. The other thing that he should probably do is maybe he doesn't advertise locally. He doesn't advertise through any of the different formats that are local or national, actually. The way he advertises, it's on online advertising only. So it's not as wide. He should get a certified realtor that specializes in this type of business, and then he probably would get buyers for it, but he's not doing that. And it will continue to do this over and over
Thank you.
until
Your
he
time is
stops
up.
doing it.
Thank you, Ms.
Okay.
Booz.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Brian Booz is next. If you would kindly unmute yourself, raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. This is Brian Booz, and I live in Monroe County.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, and thank you everybody for your time this evening. A lot of the things have already been said. I was present during the last round of this issue last August through the meeting, And one big stipulation, as should be, was that those 5 criteria need to be met if a variance like this is going to be approved. At that time, after all the pros and cons were given, and like I said, I was in the room when we got near the end, Mr. Loftman there, who's there this evening, said, I don't think any of these have been met, actually. The board eventually unanimously agreed, and the request was rejected. Since that time, I haven't heard anything that's changed. Not on the business side, not on the property side, not on what's actually going to be requested about it. Nothing has changed, and I still don't think any of the 5 criteria have been met, and hopefully the board continues to agree with that. Mr. Height was talking about his situation and how this, if this variance was rejected, that would impose a financial hardship on him. I disagree along similar lines that we've heard already. He invested money in the property with full knowledge of what the ag zoning was, what it allows, what it restricts. He invested a ton of money into it. That was a deliberate business decision. Later, he was involved in the sale of the Worms Way business, but kept ownership of the property, knowing again exactly how it was zoned. That was a deliberate business decision. Now he's continued to market it, as we just heard, in a certain way with a certain price. That's a deliberate business decision. I don't believe any of that denotes why a hardship is being imposed on him by the county or by anybody else. His situation is the result of his own business decisions. Regarding Mr. Arnold himself, there were lots of mentions and documentation of high moral character and likability of both John and Sarah. I happen to agree with that. I've met John, and I agree with that completely. And if I thought that mattered in this, that'd be one thing. And if I did think, who's a good person and who isn't, who's likable and who isn't, I'd bring forth the 39 residents of Windsor Private and explain how I think all of them are basically good, nice people. But again, that doesn't matter, that aspect of it. What matters in this is those 5 stated criteria of what a variance must meet to be approved. And I don't think this today, the last August, now, I don't think it meets any of those 5, and therefore this request should be rejected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Booz. And we have a member of our Board of Zoning Appeals who is going to have to leave in a few minutes. And we have still 5 people who would like to speak in opposition to this. And so I wonder if each member could keep that in mind, that the night has been long for us too, and that we have family obligations. So Mr. Steve Brown, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If we lose our member of our board, we no longer have a quorum and we'd have to delay it till next month. So just please keep that in mind. So Mr. Steve Brown, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And if you would kindly let us know how you feel about this.
Okay, I'm Steve Brown. I live in Windsor Private in Monroe County. We're opposed to this variance. If you refer back to the slope map, the actual retention pond is within 100 feet of the building C where Mr. Arnold says he would like to park some trucks. I won't go into any more detail other than he has said they do store the coal tar and they do clean their equipment. I can't believe they cleaned it on site. They must clean it somewhere else. My guess is it's on their site. So I would just like to ask you to deny this. Thank you.
Thank you so
That's
much,
all.
Mr. Brown. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Kinder, if you would kindly unmute yourself, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
My name is Lisa Kinder, and I swear to tell the truth. I live in Monroe County. My friends Julie Booz and Brian Booz and Lauren Aubin really captured the main point I wanted to bring forth about the claim of Mr. Height of the unnecessary hardship. He claims the hardship over the last 5-7 years. The property's been vacant. but makes no mention of the enrichment he has had for the over 20 years of Worms Way being in business. And the other quick point I'm going to make is regard to Mr. Arnold. I mean, it looks like they have a good business, but I also really question about the cleaning of the trucks and things of that nature. And surely he would not be at all opposed to producing material safety data sheets on every item that's going to be stored on that property. And that's the only thing I'd like to get in quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kinder. And Mr. Sinak, do you please raise your right hand, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
My name is John Sinak. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. I'm a Monroe County resident. I live in Windsor Private. I'm the vice president of the HOA. To save time, all the points I wanted to cover, for the most part, have been covered. But looking at the main points that have to be considered, the 5 key points, I think the variance has been requested before, and we've opposed this before. My backyard can see the spotlights and lights from that. As that business grows, changes, it's going to continue to create noise. It's going to affect my neighborhood, my 5 children, what I want to do with the property, potentially the value of my property, and our community as a whole. These are nice homes. These are large homes. It's a nice community. And it has a high potential to affect that in a negative way, not to mention the wildlife, the deer, the fox, the coyotes, the various different wildlife that comes through there. And this could greatly affect value of properties and our overall revenues. And I'm very much opposed to this being done, this variance being accepted. It's a micro variance. It gets sold in 5 years and another variance request, and we just micro variance up. And this is not acceptable for our community. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Sinak, and thank you for your patience tonight. Mr. Patel, if you would kindly unmute yourself and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And you please let us know what you think about this.
Yes, I'll make it short. I know you all got to go home. My friends and neighbor have made a really good case, so please deny this variance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you all for your patience and for your consideration of us. Mr. Arnold, you have 5 minutes to rebut what has been said.
Appreciate some of the warm comments from Mr. Booz and his wife. That was very nice. I want to address 2 main issues. The clean out. If you own an asphalt paver, you don't like to create more work because we're tired. When we're done for the day, before we finish that end of that driveway off, we clean the paver out right there. All that asphalt, all that diesel, all that stuff goes right there. We roll it up, we pack up our equipment, it stays on the lowboy, it stays on the trailers, and it stays that way till the next morning, until we go back out again. Now, that's not opposed to me saying I don't sweep out my trucks with a vacuum. I do that, stuff of that nature, but I don't sit out in my yard and spray stuff down with diesel and all that. As for the coal tar comment by one of these gentlemen right here, yeah, it's on my website. I just told you that the manufacturers have had a coal tar crunch, and this year we can't get none. So I haven't made the change to the website, but those 2 main issues stuck out in my head, and I wanted to address them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Arnold. So I bring it back to the members of the Board of Zoning Appeals for further discussion and/or a motion.
I do not find that the standards for a use variance have been met, and move to deny the both variance 2234 amended Arnold General Contractor use variance, and amended Arnold for lot A and for lot B concerning the real estate at 7850 and 7854 North Wayport Road.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to deny VAR-22-34 and VAR-22-36, which is the Arnold General Contractor variance to lots A and B. A vote in favor is a vote to deny both variances. D. Owens?
Yes.
Margaret Clemens.
Yes?
Skip Daly.
Present.
Guy Loftman.
Yes.
Okay, the vote carries 3 to 0 to 1.
Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for their patience. Mr. Arnold, we value you as a asphalt paver. We really appreciate your services. I'm sorry that this did not work out for you and your business. And thank you, Mrs. Arnold. Thank you for coming here tonight and for your patience. Thank you, everyone.
Move to adjourn.
Yes. Oh, we do have minutes.
We do have minutes, but if we want to look at those on the March 8th special
Now that
meeting.
Dee is here, we could vote.
We could vote, yep. Okay, go ahead.
If Skip sticks around. So does anybody move to approve the minutes from those meetings, the December and the, I don't have it right
So
before.
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I'll call the vote on the minutes to the BZA for December, January, and February. A vote in favor is a vote to approve. Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
Skip Daly.
Abstain.
Guy Loftman.
Yes.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Thanks for sticking around.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I
So
move,
moved.
I mean, any objections to adjourning?
Not me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.